Chapter 407, Strong Assisting Army, 3. The Hidden Dragon Kingdom looked at each other first and then the group. They knew neither if they were friends or foes, or even if they were just random travelers. We are the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, where might your group be from? A Hidden Dragon Kingdom Heaven Saint Master asked with a polite voice, already sensing just how strong they were. We are from the Qiangan Kingdom. The middle-aged man spoke. Qiangan Kingdom? Several of the men from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom looked confused for a moment since they had never heard of such a Qiangan Kingdom. Suddenly, an elder from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom realized something and spoke out in awe. The Qiangan Kingdom, the very same one as one of the 8 great powers on the Tianyuan continent, the Qiangan Kingdom? Immediately, every single person was in awe. Even Chang Wuji and Kafir both looked at the 5 men from the Qiangan Kingdom in surprise. Within the Tianyuan continent, the 3 great empires reigned supreme among the strongest nations within the continent. Each and every single one of the 3 were terrifyingly powerful, and under the 3 great empires, there were the 8 great powers with influence that was just as awe-inspiring. The Qiangan Kingdom were one of these 8 great powers and had a wide influence that allowed it to remain at the top of the pyramid. The elder with the tiger cub in its hand nodded. Correct, we are the Imperial advisors of the Qiangan Kingdom. After verifying their identity, the Hidden Dragon and Qiangan Kingdom immediately began to compliment and flatter them since they knew that an Imperial advisor of the Qiangan Kingdom was surely a very high status. Within the 8 great powers, the Imperial advisors of the Qiangan Kingdom were especially amazing. Only those with an outstanding talent within their generation would be able to become one, and they were formidable opponents to those within the same level of strength. Furthermore, each one had at least a single heaven-tier battle skill, meaning their level of military might was beyond the Heaven Saint Masters gathered here. Now knowing the identity of these 5, Chang Wuji and Kafir were both astounded. They never would have thought that they would meet 5 Imperial advisors from one of the 8 great powers. This was truly a rare encounter. They didn't say anything since the Imperial advisors were most likely just passing through the area. After all, the quarrel between the Jessan Kingdom and Hidden Dragon Kingdom was beneath the notice of such a kingdom. As one of the 8 great powers, the Qiangan Kingdom had many vassal states that were already stronger than the Jessan Kingdom. It could even be said that every single one of the vassal states could defeat the Jessan Kingdom if need be. Smiling, the 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom began to greet the Qiangan Kingdom Imperial advisors respectfully in hopes that they could somehow form some sort of relationship with them. If they could pull this off, then they would gain many benefits from such a friendship. But the men from the Qiangan Kingdom looked around without a smile. With a simple glaze around himself, the elder holding the tiger cub spoke. Is this the stronghold of the Jessan Kingdom? Everyone was confused on why such a high-ranking noble from the Qiangan Kingdom would ask such a question. Despite their confusion, no one dared ask why. Instead, the Qiangan Kingdom Heaven Saint Master spoke. Correct, that is the northern fort of the Jessan Kingdom. Who are you? The elder with the white tiger cub asked. This one is Xiong Baotai from the Xiong family of the Qiangan clan. The Heaven Saint Master smiled. Instantly losing interest, the elder with the tiger cub looked to the pale-faced and seriously injured Chang Wuji and Kafir. Then you must be the men from the Jessan Kingdom. Kafir and Chang Wuji looked at each other with confusion as they tried to figure out just why an Imperial advisor from the Qiangan Kingdom would ask such a thing. Their Jessan Kingdom was far beneath the notice of such a great kingdom, and the Imperial advisors wouldn't even bother with such a tiny conflict as this one. Correct, we are from the Jessan Kingdom. Chang Wuji spoke. Although their kingdom was on the verge of destruction, he did not wish to offend anyone. Still holding onto the tiger cub, the elder finally let out a kind smile. It seems that we came just in time then. By the order of our Imperial protector, the 5 of us are here to provide assistance for the Jessan Kingdom. If there is anything you need, then we will follow your orders. At the words of the Imperial advisor, everyone was immediately stunned as if they had heard something unbelievable. Both the Hidden Dragon and Qiangan Kingdom Heaven Saint Masters both instantly blanched as their faces grew dark. They never would have thought that the Jessan Kingdom and the gigantic power that was the Qiangan Kingdom would have a friendship between them to the point where the Imperial protector of the Qiangan Kingdom would even send 5 Imperial advisors to help assist them. This was an earth-breaking piece of information that would stun anyone. An Imperial Protector was a status that left no doubt on people's mind regarding their power. With an Imperial Protector standing right behind the Qiangan kingdom, then even the 4 kingdoms fighting against it would obediently retreat. That was because the ire of the Qiangan kingdom was far too much for them to try and provoke. While each one of the kingdoms had 2 million soldiers and a decent amount of Heaven Saint Masters, it was nothing in comparison to the Qiangan kingdom, who would only need a handful of elite soldiers to completely overwhelm them. Chang Wuji and Kafir were speechless and utterly dazed by this response. They could have sworn that they misheard something. These 5 imperial advisors from the Qiangan kingdom were here to assist them. Furthermore, they were ordered to buy an Imperial Protector. Then, the two felt suspicious. Just how did the Qiangan kingdom establish a friendship with one of the Imperial Protectors of one of the 8 great powers? We're going. The 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom had no other alternatives. With a low growl, they began to retreat while the Piyang Kingdom's Heaven Saint Master followed behind without hesitation. But the elder with the tiger cub suddenly gave a look to the men behind him, signaling them silently. Immediately, they chased after the 5 Heaven Saint Masters. The Heaven Saint Masters blanched before one of them spoke out impatiently. "Honored Imperial Advisors, we have no grievances with you, why must you chase after us?" There was a hint of panic in his voice. They had received no verbal response. Instead, the 4 Imperial Advisors burst into action and the 9 began to fight in a spectacular fashion. At this moment the soldiers from the Piyang Kingdom had begun to feel the aftermath from the extreme ripples of energy above, killing the masses in large amounts. Those who were able to become an Imperial Advisors were the elite among the elite and had many skills that allowed them to easily fight against those of the same level. Even a 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Master could kill a regular 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master. Despite it being a 5 versus 4 match, the Qiangan Kingdom held the upper hand and were winning against the 5. Chang Wuji and Kafir were now staring at the battle with eyes wide open. They could only describe this sensation they were feeling as inconceivable, as if they were dreaming instead of living. In the middle of nowhere, the Qiangan Kingdom had suddenly obtained a strong assisting army along with the Imperial Protector of the Qiangan Kingdom. As for the walls of the Stronghold, many of the grey-armored soldiers had their fighting spirits roused once more. Their eyes lit up with emotion before turning sharp like swords as they began to shake with excitement. The battle in front of them was extraordinarily fierce and caused waves of Saint force to splash over the battlegrounds. Not too long after, the Heaven Saint Masters from the Piyang and Hidden Dragon Kingdom were injured, and shortly after that, they were captured. Seal their inner Saint force. An elder called out before melding his fingers into a seal and then using a strange technique to seal the 5 Saint force. With their strength sealed, the 5 Heaven Saint Masters had gone ashen with fear. Now that their strengths were gone, they were like a group of sitting ducks with no chance of escape. The 4 Imperial Advisors took the 5 sealed men to the elder with the white tiger cub. Everyone had attributed him to be both the strongest and the leader of the group. Flying over to Chang Wuji and Kafir, the elder with the tiger cub spoke. "This elder is named Xiao Tian. From here on forth, we are yours to command for whichever purposes you need us for, so don't hold back. These Hidden Dragon Kingdom people are yours as you see fit." Chang Wuji and Kafir were both paralyzed with emotions. Profusely thanking the 5 Imperial Advisors, they later sent the 5 sealed Heaven Saint Masters from the opposing kingdoms to the guillotine to cut off their heads. Afterward, a total of 9 Heaven Saint Master heads hung from the walls of the northern stronghold. These Heaven Saint Masters had the blood of countless of soldiers from the Qiangan Kingdom. They had also killed 2 experts from the eastern stronghold, making their sins utterly unpardonable. If they weren't killed, then the people within the kingdom would bear a grudge for all eternity. Within the stronghold, the commanders of the northern stronghold all gathered together in order to pay their respects to the 5 Imperial Advisors from the Qiangan Kingdom. 4 hours later, the Imperial Advisors had all split ways. Xiao Tian carried the tiger cub with him to the eastern stronghold while the 4 others split into groups of 2 headed toward the western and southern stronghold. Before leaving, they had left behind several radiant spirit pills so that Chang Wuji and Kafir could both recover their strength and continue protecting the northern stronghold. Chapter 408, valiantly storming the stronghold. 1. The 5 Heaven Saint Masters from the Qiangan kingdom didn't stay at the stronghold for too long. As per the decree from the Imperial Protector, they were to assist the Qiangan kingdom against any hostile action, so they would figure out the situation of the kingdom before splitting paths. After knowing what to do, the Imperial advisors split paths in order to move to the other 3 strongholds. The northern stronghold in the Qiangan kingdom would be defended by Chang Wuji and Kafir after using the Radiant Spirit pill given to them to recover their health. Thanks to the pills, their health had been quickly stabilized and their bodies healed at a fast rate. The Pingyang kingdom's Heaven Saint Masters killed one by one, had been a huge detriment to the opposing army's morale. Without any further motivation, the army drew back and out of distance. Presently, the situation within the northern stronghold had been resolved, but with the 4 united kingdoms still against them, danger was still imminent. At this moment, the Pingyang kingdom had an unexpected guest. After some time, Jian Shen had finally arrived at the Imperial Palace and strode in expressionlessly. Despite the kingdom being involved in a war, the palace was filled with people without any anxiety to be seen. Halt, who goes there? As soon as Jian Shen entered through the palace gates, 2 guards appeared to stop him. Jian Shen's eyes flashed once as an azure and violet sword chi shot forth from his fingers and instantly shot through the throats of the guards. Without a sound, the 2 guards fell to the ground dead. The other people within the palace immediately looked on in surprise. How brazen! Are you here to cause trouble? Arrest him! 30 Imperial Palace guards instantly appeared from both sides. There was no hesitation in their actions as they simultaneously rushed at Jian Shen with their saint weapons. With a calm look still, Jian Shen raised a finger, causing another jet of sword chi to appear on it. Stabbing at the 30 guards, he managed to pierce through each and every single one of their throats, causing a small finger-sized hole to appear in them. Blood instantly splayed in the air like the image of a flower. Without even able to cry out in pain, the guards all fell to the ground in a flash of blood and chi. As they lay on the ground, their blood began to pool underneath their bodies. Immediately, a whistling sound could be heard as one of the palace guards began to sound the alarm. This alarm was long and panicked, meaning it was the highest possible warning throughout the kingdom. Not too long after, a wave of hurried footsteps could be heard coming from within the palace as if there was a battle taking place inside. At the same time, the closed gates to the palace slowly swung open as a couple of armored soldiers stepped out in formation. Each one was expressionless, but their eyes contained a frosty glare as if barely holding their honed killing intents as elite soldiers. Right in front of this squadron of elite soldiers, a white armored middle-aged man came riding forward on a Class 3 magical beast mount. His eyes swept across the dead bodies of the 30 guards and then right onto Jian Shen. With a wave of his hand, he barked out an order, "Arrest him." The soldiers behind him immediately rushed forward in an attempt to hem Jian Shen in. Sneering, Jian Shen waved his fingers, allowing sword chi to gather once more. Even against such a formidable amount of sword chi, none of the soldiers had any hesitation and continued on. But before they could respond to Jian Shen's next move, he had already stabbed several of them through the throats. In an instant, another 14 soldiers fell to the ground. The middle-aged man on top of the Class 3 magical beast mount narrowed his eyes before forming a 3-meter-long yellow spear. Leaping down from his mount, he charged toward Jian Shen and stabbed toward his throat with his spear. The middle-aged man was a first-cycle Earth Saint Master, meaning his strength was someone that was absolutely beneath Jian Shen's notice. With a wave of his finger, a jettison of sword chi shot forward and slammed against the man's long spear. Ding! Following a crisp sound, the middle-aged man's body began to violently shake as the sword chi that slammed into him forced his body to go numb from shock. Flying back through the air, he met the ground and was dragged back several meters. Another blade of sword chi formed on Jian Shen's fingertips and immediately flew toward the man's throat before he could even get back up. Ho! The Black Panther that was the man's mount immediately let out a powerful snarl before charging toward Jian Shen. The sword chi hardened on Jian Shen's finger as he took notice of the panther. As soon as it got closer to him, his right hand flickered into motion, instantly beheading the panther's head with the sword chi blade on his finger. There were about 200 elite soldiers gathered here, but when they saw this display of strength, they were instantly terrified. "Quick, sound the war drums! Sound the war drums!" The remaining soldiers instantly realized that Jian Chen wasn't someone they could defend against and turned around to run back into the palace. Dong 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 dong. The war drums began to sound throughout the palace with a strong echo, allowing everyone within the palace to be able to hear them. Upon hearing the war drums, every single person within the palace was confused. They had already forgotten just how long it had been since they had last heard the war drums. After several seconds, they immediately began to react to the war drums and began to panic. Squadrons of armored soldiers began to appear throughout the palace as they rushed toward the palace gates. Even the hidden experts within the palace didn't dare delay their movements as they approached the gates as well. The two gigantic bronze lions standing in place next to the palace gates began to raise into the air due to Jian Chen's control. With a burst of azure and violet, they flew at the walls of the Imperial Palace. Bang! Following two loud explosions, the palace walls began to crumble away after being destroyed by the two bronze lions, revealing two large holes. Chapter 409, Valiantly Storming the Stronghold, 2, Bang. Following two loud explosions, the palace walls began to crumble away after being destroyed by the two bronze lions, revealing two large holes. Without stopping to take a rest, he levitated the same two bronze lions and began to destroy the surrounding walls. In a flash, the nearby walls to the city were beginning to crumble. Already, the entirety of the wall had been compromised and reduced to rubble. This caused the entirety of the palace to be truly shocked as squadrons of elite soldiers continued to charge forth. The experts hidden away in the palace led the charge toward the source of the destruction with cold glares. "Where is the scoundrel that dares to act in such a manner toward our Qiangan kingdom? To dare cause trouble in our Qiangan kingdom's palace, you must be tired of living. Intruder, speak your name. How audacious! Even death won't pardon your crimes of destroying our imperial city." Mixed in with the furious cries of soldiers, 20 Earth Saint Masters flew toward Jian Chen's position with their saint weapons in hand, ready to attack him. Following two large explosions, the two gigantic bronze lion statues flew in a graceful arc toward the incoming people. At the same time, the rubble of the city walls began to levitate in the air before pelting the 20 Earth Saint Masters with blinding speed. These stones were reinforced by the azure and violet sword Qi, meaning their offensive strength was enough to injure Heaven's Saint Masters. Against such a strike, a group of Earth Saint Masters would be powerless to prevent the stones from destroying their bodies. Even with their saint weapons already poised to attack the stones, they did no damage at all. Not even within several breaths, the 20 Earth Saint Masters had died in battle. In the eyes of Jian Chen, only Heaven's Saint Masters had a chance of fighting with him. Earth Saint Masters may be high-leveled experts within the continent, but to him, they had utterly no chance at all in even harming or getting close to him. The sounds of heavy footsteps could be heard as the elite squadron of soldiers came pouring in like a tidal wave. There were at least 1,000 people that quickly hemmed Jian Chen within a ring and glared heavily at Jian Chen. "Sire, who are you and why are you destroying the palace of our Qiangan kingdom?" One of the elders riding on a Class 3 magical beast spoke with a serious expression. Jian Chen looked past the elder and at the gold and red Imperial Palace without answering his question. But when the elder saw the 20 dead Earth Saint Masters on the ground, he grew deathly serious and grim. Sizing up the young age of Jian Chen, he couldn't help but feel a little skeptical. If such a youngster was able to eliminate 20 Earth Saint Masters, that would be utterly inconceivable. Then a realization hit him. An Earth Saint Master wouldn't be able to kill 20 Earth Saint Masters so quickly. This was the work of a Heaven Saint Master. Could this youngster right in front of him truly be a Heaven Saint Master? At this question, the elder tried to calm his heart down. If what he thought was true, then this person in front of him had a talent that was utterly terrifying. "Sire, just who might you be? Why must you destroy our Qiangan kingdom's imperial palace?" The elder asked carefully once more, desperately hoping to find a way to not be an enemy to Jian Chen. Jian Chen looked to the imperial palace and spoke softly, "From here on out, this Imperial palace will cease to exist within the Qiangan continent. Hearing this, the elder couldn't help but explode with anger. How arrogant. Our Piyang kingdom has survived within the Qiangan continent for hundreds of years, just how could a child destroy it? Jianshan spoke no words and opened his hands, allowing the fire element within the world to gather within his hands and forming a bright red ray of light. In a flash, a rich firewall had formed around Jianshan's body while also raising the temperature to be unbearable. Paling, the elder quickly cried out an order, retreat. This elder was not a Heaven Saint Master, but he had a clear understanding of their strengths. Despite all of the guards gathered here being the elite soldiers of the kingdom, they stood no chance against a Heaven Saint Master. At this command, all of the surrounding soldiers immediately began to run away from Jianshan. It was already far too late. The fire surrounding Jianshan's body exploded outward, transforming into a bright wall of fire that expanded throughout the area and washed over the sky with its high temperatures. The sky soon became a scorching area with no one able to breathe inside it. The plumes of fire quickly made its way around the area, engulfing many soldiers within its path. With its high temperatures, the fire quickly brought the iron armor to a fiery red before turning it into molten iron. Countless of soldiers caught by this attack began to cry out in a miserable howl. The elder on the other hand fortunately escaped from the attack and could only watch with dazed eyes. At that moment, two formidable powers flew from the palace with a furious roar. Two Heaven Saint Masters could then be seen floating overhead with a furious look at the scene. Who are you? Why are you attacking the Piyang kingdom? One of the Heaven Saint Masters glared at Jianshan menacingly. Despite Jianshan killing many of their soldiers, he had to make sure of the situation carefully. A bubble of the wind element surrounded Jianshan, allowing him to float up into the air to meet the two Heaven Saint Masters at their level. I am from the Jessan kingdom. Today, I will make your Piyang kingdom pay a heavy price for your crime. Jianshan spoke calmly but with a hint of steel to it. His killing intent was plain to see from him. Upon hearing his response, the two Heaven Saint Masters looked at each other in surprise. Since when did the Jessan kingdom have such a talented individual as this one? They had never heard of such a person before. Chapter 4:10, Underground Labyrinth. Upon hearing his response, the two Heaven Saint Masters looked at each other in surprise. Since when did the Jessan kingdom have such a talented individual as this one? They had never heard of such a person before. Without mincing words, Jianshan's hands grabbed at the sky. Almost instantly, two giant swords of fire materialized in his hands before shooting straight for the two Heaven Saint Masters. The final two Heaven Saint Masters of the Piyang kingdom decided to no longer use words to talk after realizing that Jianshan was a member of the Jessan kingdom. A fight was unavoidable at this point, and unless one of the two sides died, there would be no end. Deciding not to hold back, the both of them instantly brought out their saint weapons to block the fire swords. With a clanging sound, the fire swords were shattered apart and filled the sky with their residual flames. The two Heaven Saint Masters chose to use a layer of saint force to protect their bodies instead of dodging. They charged into the sea of flames toward Jianshan. Still expressionless, Jianshan hovered in midair while watching the two Heaven Saint Masters. Despite the flames licking away at their bodies, he was still able to clearly see them within his mind thanks to his omnipresence ability. A bright essence of pure azure and violet light began to glow on top of Jianshan's fingers before solidifying to become a sword. Adopting a blitzkrieg strategy, he formed the origin energy in his hand to end the fight as soon as possible. As soon as the origin energy solidified, the two Heaven Saint Masters re-emerged from the sea of flames headed toward Jianshan. Both of their saint weapons had a large amount of pressure radiating from them as they shot toward him. By a tacit agreement, both Heaven Saint Masters had agreed to use their Earth-tier battle skills on him. Jianshan's eyes flashed brightly. Although he had lost his saint force, the chaotic force had changed his body so that it was now way stronger than before. Even his speed had received a large boost after the chaotic force. A flash of azure and violet could be seen before Jianshan's right hand slammed the origin energy against both saint weapons of the Heaven Saint Masters. Upon contact, a tremendous ripple of energy flew out from where the three weapons struck against each other in every direction. Jian and the two others were sent flying back because of the result. When the two Heaven Saint Masters finally stabilized themselves, they both instantly spat out a mouthful of blood. With a terrified gasp, they looked down at the saint weapon in their hands. Right in front of them, a ragged jag could be seen on their saint weapon. When a saint weapon was injured, the owner would receive a large amount of damage as a result. Looking from their weapons to each other, both Heaven Saint Masters turned to look at Jian in an awestruck fashion. Then, one of the two immediately cried out, "Carry out the highest safety warning." From farther away, near the Imperial Palace, there was a group of soldiers watching the battle take place. Among this group was an elderly man wearing a purple and gold dragon robe. The very moment he heard the words of the Heaven Saint Master, his eyes narrowed. This purple and gold dragon-robed elder was the king of the Qiangan kingdom. By his side were his personal bodyguards, but when each one of them heard what the Heaven Saint Master called out, their faces turned sour. "The highest safety warning? Your Majesty, quickly, into the labyrinth. Escort His Majesty to the underground labyrinth, now now now." The bodyguards besides the king began to whisper to each other frantically before surrounding the king and bringing him away from sight in a flash. Within the sky, Jian started to use the origin energy of the sword spirits to limit the attacks of both Heaven Saint Masters. By now, they were no longer able to do anything but desperately fend off the strikes before finally being killed by Jian. With the death of the two, there was no longer anyone capable of stopping him. Descending to the ground, Jian stretched out his omnipresence for a circumference of 15 kilometers. Step by step, Jian drew closer to the biggest hall within the central palace. Not too long after, Jian was surrounded by countless of soldiers once more like moths to a flame. These soldiers were all 100 meters away from him with looks of dread on their faces. Their legs staggered away from him as if afraid of charging toward their death. Jian was not the type to continue with a massacre like this. Walking forward, he finally came to the deepest part of the central palace and walked in while the soldiers stood behind anxiously. Not a single one of them dared to follow him in. Jian's slaughter of the two Heaven Saint Masters had been seen in full detail by each of the soldiers here, scaring them to the point of utter panic. Even as elite trained soldiers, they had long since been intimidated to the point of wanting to run away as far as possible. Although this was the very first time Jian had been in the Imperial Palace of the Qiangan Kingdom, he had a good grasp on the inner arrangements of the place. Walking straight to the throne room, Jian noticed that there was a hidden button right next to the throne. With a screeching sound after being pushed, the throne began to move back before revealing a 2-meter wide hole that seemed to have a set of stairs leading downward. "Humph, no matter where you shoot off to, don't think that you can escape from me." Jian snorted before descending into the hole. The inside of the cave was extremely dark and every 30 meters there was a night pearl illuminating the way through the darkness with a weak glow. After descending for what seemed to be 1,000 meters, Jian finally reached the deepest point of the place. There was no more earth to be seen here, instead, only steel could be found. Continuing to make his way forward, Jian walked down the passageway. This place was an underground labyrinth fashioned completely out of cold hard steel. Even if the earth above it were to collapse, this labyrinth would be completely unaffected by it. With the assistance from his omnipresence, the entire labyrinth was mapped out so that nothing was hidden from Jian. However, he felt something strange. The entire labyrinth seemed to be alive. Within, the steel walls could be automated to move about freely and change the layout of the entire labyrinth so that an originally free path would become a dead end. With this, one would be stuck walking in a circle forever and would be doomed to die in here. At this thought, Jian couldn't help but click his tongue in annoyance. It boggled his mind to think just how long it would take to create such a complicated labyrinth with a function like this. Strolling down the paths with ease, Jian simply swatted down the paths that blocked his path with the sword chi to advance. If a Heaven Saint Master were to be stuck down here, even they would be stuck down here for some time, but this place was of no obstacle to Jian. Suddenly, a gray smoke began to fill up every single pathway of the labyrinth. In a flash, the labyrinth was filled with a poisonous fog that even a regular antidote would fail to cure. Although it would fail to kill a Heaven Saint Master, it would still do a certain amount of damage after being infected. Seeing the poisonous mist within the labyrinth, Jianshan couldn't help but feel a little contempt. With his 1,000 immunity body, there was practically no poison in the world that could affect him. Without any delay in speed, Jianshan continued to walk down the pathways while cutting holes through whatever passageway moved to block his path. Currently, within the deepest parts of the labyrinth, the king of the Qiangan kingdom and 30 of his most loyal followers could be seen huddled together with grim expressions. Their current position was the safest part of the labyrinth and was protected by 4 steel walls about 10 meters wide in thickness. Even a Heaven Saint Master would find difficulty in breaking through them, and there was also a large surplus of food that was enough for 100 people to live for several years, making this place incredibly safe. Just who is this terrifying person if 2 of our Imperial advisors were unable to stop him? The king spoke with a grief-stricken face. Your Majesty, your servant believes this person must be from the Qiangan kingdom. Previously, I heard that during the battle between our kingdom and the Qiangan kingdom, they had an expert declare retaliation upon us. A guard spoke. The king nodded his head faintly. I heard that as well, but do you think that person will be able to find this place? The king spoke with worry. Your Majesty, please don't worry. This labyrinth is extremely complex and can even change its layout at countless different permutations along with many different traps. Unless there is a traitor, there would be no way for the man to find this place. Another guard spoke. These were his most devoted followers who placed the king as a high importance. Your Majesty, please do not worry. Our experts defending the strongholds will be here soon and force that man away from here without any hope. Another guard spoke. But what he didn't know was that every single one of the Qiangan Kingdom's Heaven Saint Masters had already died since the news of their death from the strongholds had not yet been heard here. Jianshan continued to cut away obstacle after obstacle until at last, he had arrived at the deepest part of the labyrinth where a resplendent but thick steel wall could be seen. Seeing this steel wall, Jianshan let out a cold smile before forming the origin energy on his fingers. The origin energy grew 10 meters long in length before immediately cutting through the steel wall as if it were tofu. Chapter 411, Seize the King. Within the northern stronghold of the Qiangan kingdom, it was temporarily quiet. Every soldier was starting to treat their wounds while a few Radiant Saint Masters continued to treat everyone as much as they could with their Radiant Saint force. On the wall, several of the bandaged soldiers were out patrolling the area. With the heads of 9 enemy Heaven Saint Masters mounted on the wall, the morale of the soldiers was at an all-time high. On both sides of the wall, many blacksmiths could be seen at work trying to mend it with a variety of items laid out a meter around them. As they stripped away the damaged pieces and replaced them with newer ones. Outside the stronghold, several soldiers from the Qiangan kingdom were digging holes and burying the bodies of the dead soldiers in it. Right about now, the army from the Qiangan kingdom were 15 kilometers away and stood completely still without making any intentions of moving forward. After seeing the Heaven Saint Masters die right in front of them, they were far too shocked to continue attacking. Within the stronghold, 30 armored commanders were convened together with a serious expression. Everyone, I've just received a messenger pigeon from the other 3 forts. As of now, the enemy army has broken through them and are now making their way toward the Imperial city. We have taken serious casualties, and a Heaven Saint Master has died at the hands of the enemy with the other Heaven Saint Masters taking heavy damage. As it is, we are in a dire situation. An elder spoke grimly. Everyone's faces hardened as they listened. With the other 3 strongholds breached, if there was no more further attempts at stopping them, the Imperial city would be attacked and the Qiangan kingdom would truly be over. In my opinion, even with the Imperial advisors from the Qiangan kingdom helping us, it will be of no use. The difference in strength between both sides are too vast, and with just 5 people, it won't do much. Another commander spoke. I hope that the Imperial advisors' strength will be enough to intimidate the enemy. It is in my belief that they won't dare offend the Qiangan kingdom or else risk 1,000,000 elite soldiers from the Qiangan kingdom destroying their kingdoms. I don't believe the situation is that simple to resolve. Everyone knows that the Qiangan kingdom is a large distance away from us. There isn't a significant relationship between the 2 kingdoms either. I bet that the enemy will believe that the 5 Imperial advisors are faking their identities and are only just hired help for the Qiangan kingdom. You have a fair point, I can see that scenario happening. Despite the Qiangan kingdom's magnificent power and prestige, it won't matter much to our situation if our imperial city is invaded. Our defense of this stronghold would be of no use and would just lead to our surrender. The commanders began to talk among each other passionately as everyone spoke about their perspective on the matter with a tone of panic. What about this? We will send several squadrons to the other 3 forts to provide assistance. Everyone, what do you think? An elder proposed. Hearing this, everyone's eyes narrowed before another person spoke. But our soldier reserves are currently 3 million strong with practically everyone injured or tired. Furthermore, there are countless of mercenaries with absolutely no discipline at all. I believe we should send the vanguards over to the other forts only. This is our only possible solution. I agree to this proposal. That's correct. This is our only course of action now that the northern stronghold has been stabilized. The Qiangan kingdom is down 8 Heaven Saint Masters with only 2 of them protecting the Imperial palace. I can bet that they won't make any rash moves and will move their army to the other 3 strongholds. While we cannot defend against the attack, we can at least delay them. After a fierce deliberation, the commanders finally came to a conclusion. The strongest and uninjured commanders would lead 2 million soldiers and split into 3 paths toward the strongholds. Even the Radiant Saint Masters were split into groups of 3. Not too long after, the 2 Heaven Saint Masters in the northern stronghold obtained new information. Before Chang Wuji and Kafir could fully recover, the 2 immediately traveled to the eastern stronghold with the rest of the Qiangan clan members. With 2 million soldiers leaving, the northern stronghold was all but empty now. All that was left were several 100,000, however, many of them were injured and/or disabled. The 2 million soldier strong army standing right outside the northern stronghold had a dozen of its commanders gathered together with a furious look. Many of the commanders here had a senior that was one of the Heaven Saint Masters that were killed. General Hong, what are you hesitating for? There's only the crippled and injured left in the stronghold. If you can signal the invasion, then we will be able to successfully invade the stronghold. Then, those Heaven Saint Masters of the Qiangan kingdom will lose their heads in revenge for our ancestor. No. Our Qiangan kingdom has already lost a devastating amount of power as a result of those 8 Heaven Saint Masters dying. Our strength isn't even a half of what it used to be, therefore, we should be thinking about how to defend ourselves from the Qiangan kingdom instead of how to invade it. An armored elder spoke seriously. The Qiangan kingdom had lost 8 Heaven Saint Masters. These were the pinnacle fighters of their nation, and so their deaths made their kingdom utterly powerless. At the elder's words, another person opened his mouth. General Hong is correct. Right now our Heaven Saint Masters are down to 2, both of them are back within the Imperial Palace. If the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, Blue Wind Kingdom, and the Andreas Kingdom were to invade the Qiangan Kingdom, who will guarantee us that they will not take advantage of our weakness and turn on our own kingdom? Could you mean that the death of our ancestor won't be avenged? Another commander spoke with a heavy glower. Don't worry. This time, the Qiangan kingdom will surely fall. Those Heaven Saint Masters will die soon as well. When they die, your ancestor will be avenged. Don't tell me you wish to try and kill a Heaven Saint Master with your Earth Saint Master strength? General Hong spoke coldly. At this, the general with the slain ancestor sighed. He knew that he did not possess the strength to do such a thing. The army of the Qiangan kingdom had no reason to attack the Qiangan kingdom's stronghold. All they could do was to stand 30 kilometers away and wait. Not too long, however, the Qiangan kingdom's stronghold finally came with some information from the Imperial Palace. The report said that an unknown Heaven Saint Master had entered the borders of the Qiangan kingdom and had started to lay waste to the Imperial Palace. The moment this piece of information was announced to everyone, the commanders let out aghast looks before quickly ushering the army back as quickly as they could. In the underground labyrinth, the king of the Qiangan kingdom and his several bodyguards were looking closely at a sealed space where a jade table could be seen. This jade was an oddity within the continent, and was called the Jades of the Motherly Twins. There was 2 pieces to this set, and in the case one of them broke, then the other piece would disintegrate quickly afterward. One of the jade pieces was located in the underground labyrinth while the other was in a top-secret location. Only a select few knew of its existence, and once the danger to the kingdom was removed, then the men on the outside would destroy the jade piece and notify the hidden king. Right now, every single one of the bodyguards and the king were desperately waiting for the jade table to shatter into pieces. Suddenly, the king and his bodyguards could hear a strange noise heading in their direction. As they turned to look, the steel wall protecting them suddenly began to glow with an azure and violet ray of light. Everyone immediately paled in fear and despair as they looked at the lights. They didn't know just what they were, but a deep premonition began to well up within them. What is that? Even the king found it hard to maintain his calm composure. Not a single person answered the king, however. Hidden away in their spots, they could only stare intensely at the hole in front of them. The azure and violet gleams of light began to move around before spreading out all over the steel wall. As the light washed over the walls, cracks could be seen spreading throughout the steel material. No, he's breaking the walls even more. One of the soldiers cried out in pure fear. The steel wall was built to be 10 meters thick and could withstand even a Heaven Saint Master. But right now, it had already been smashed apart by their enemy. Just how strong was this invader? The soldiers and king began to stagger back in fear as they watched the two lights continue to destroy the steel wall in front of them. Impossible, this isn't any regular wall to be destroyed. Is our enemy a saint ruler? The king couldn't hide any of his trepidation now, with his voice struggling to stay coherent. Bang! At the moment the king had spoken, another explosion could be heard as pieces of the wall came flying off before crumbling to the ground. A fierce shockwave could be felt as each steel piece slammed into the ground, and the wall suddenly gained a 2-meter-tall hole. The crisp sounds of footsteps could be heard walking toward them. A figure dressed in a white robe with blood on it slowly came into view. This person wasn't old by any means and could be no older than his early 20s. There was barely an inch of hair on him, but there was a regal air to his figure. The king and the other soldiers all looked at the figure in fear while their legs continued to bring them backward. Who are you? The king asked. Jian Shen said no words and stalked toward the king with his cold eyes piercing straight into him. The king of the Qiangan kingdom was a senile old man with a purple and gold dragon robe and crown. He had even a noble air to him, but under the piercing eyes of Jian Shen, he was absolutely cowed. Striding forward, Jian Shen was soon at the corner the group was hiding in. Protect the king. One of the guards cried out before throwing away his fear and charging at Jian Shen. With one man leading the charge, the others dared not fall behind. With one final breath of hesitation, they too flew at Jian Shen. Chapter 412. Pillaging the Treasury without any rush. Jian Shen formed a bright blade of sword qi on his finger and completely massacred all of the great Saint Masters. From this group, there were only 3 Earth Saint Masters that were fortunate enough to survive the initial attack. Your Majesty, please escape. We will hold him off. The 3 Earth Saint Masters were by no means cowards. They were willing to throw away their lives in order to try and stop Jian Shen from attacking their king. But the king only looked at the 3 soldiers willing to die for him with remorse. He had no intentions of running since he knew that escaping now was futile and would only expend energy needlessly. Stop! The king suddenly called out to the 3 soldiers powerlessly. Looking to Jian Shen with a grieved look, he spoke. This king has already been forced into a state where I cannot run away. If you could please tell me just who you are, then I will be content to die. Jian Shen stared passively at the king for a moment before speaking. Who I am is not important. Just know that I am from the Jessan kingdom. As I expected, you really are from the Jessan kingdom. The king sighed before looking back to Jian Shen. It seems this king's decision on joining the other 3 kingdoms to attack the Jessan kingdom was the wrong choice to make. I had been 90% sure that the Jessan kingdom wouldn't have such a hidden talent who could storm my Qiangan kingdom's imperial palace and cause me to end up like this. The king looked even more ragged than before, as if he had spontaneously aged. This king has already fallen, do as you seem fit as punishment, whether that is to kill or torture me. This king can only humbly request that you forgive these soldiers, they are innocent of my crimes. The king pleaded humbly. Your Majesty. This servant's only mission in life is to protect your well-being. We three do not fear death. The three soldiers immediately protested, kneeling in front of him and Jian Chen without concern for their life. The king shook his head. This war is a sin that I must bear alone. The decision of going to war does not fall upon your shoulders. Furthermore, you have your own family to take care of. Upon being reminded of their families, the three soldiers immediately stiffened with their eyes filling up with tears. The look in Jian Chen's eyes grew dark for a moment. When the king had mentioned family, Jian Chen couldn't help but think to his own family. The king pleaded to Jian Chen once more, everything is the mistake of this king. I will call my armies back immediately, so please spare my three guards. Jian Chen looked to the pale three soldiers kneeling nearby. They had already been injured by his initial attacks, so Jian Chen hesitated for a moment. I will forgive them, but if they dare try to exploit the Jessan kingdom in any way, I will not be so kind then. The king let out a sigh in relief. Each one of the three guards had been with him for 20 years at the very least and had protected him without question. Although he was their king and they were his servants, they had a deep friendship with each other. Thus, the king had naturally tried his best to ensure that the three guards would not die with him. The king knew that Jian Chen was a heaven saint master, so sending these three earth saint masters would accomplish nothing but their deaths. Instead of killing the king, Jian Chen grabbed him by the shoulders and took him away, leaving behind the three guards still kneeling with miserable looks. Your Majesty. The three guards began to tear up as they watched their king get dragged further and further away. Although they wished to go with him, they lacked the power to do so. Jian Chen quickly left the underground palace with the king, re-emerging into the palace hall. By now, there were many armored men of high status along with other officials gathered nearby. Seeing Jian Chen walk out, the palace grew tense with anxiety as several men took out their saint weapons. Even if it cost them their lives, they wanted to stop Jian Chen since they knew that soon, the army attacking the border would return. But when a certain purple and gold-robed elder came walking out, everyone was stunned. It didn't take much to tell that the king had been captured by Jian Chen. Seeing all of the gathered high-ranking officials here, the captured king could only sigh before quickly ordering them to stand down. Then, without needing to be ordered to by Jian Chen, the king immediately issued out an imperial edict to bring back all of the soldiers stationed by the Jessan kingdom's northern stronghold. After the edict, the king turned to Jian Chen. What do you wish for this old king to do now? Jian Chen's strength had already caused the king to give up any chance of escaping. He knew that if he didn't cooperate, his entire army would suffer. The palace would be washed with the blood of his people. An event like this was common enough within the continent. Take me to the treasury. Jian Chen spoke. At this, everyone's face blanched before a blunt elder spoke. Impossible. The treasury is where the root of our kingdom's finances lie. If it is robbed, then our kingdom would, PCHT. The elder immediately grew silent as Jian Chen's azure and violet sword chi shot out and struck through his head, killing him instantly. Prime Minister. Countless of people began to mourn out for the death of this person while others glared furiously at Jian Chen. Grandfather. A few young military officers cried out in grief. Then pulling out their saint weapons, they cried out in a righteous fury, fight me to your death. And with that, they charged straight toward Jian Chen. No. Retreat, all of you. The king barked, but unfortunately he had spoke far too late. Jian Chen instantly moved into action, shooting his sword chi straight through their throats and splashing the halls with their blood. Get back, everyone get back. He is not someone you can face against. The king spoke. These people within the kingdom were all the highest-ranking spot holders of the kingdom. Without their existence, then the Pingyang kingdom truly would be gone in all but name. With renewed fear, he turned to Jian Chen before the rest of the people would be killed. This king will take you to the treasury. Everyone, stand down or be beheaded. Afterward, the king of the Piyang kingdom guided Jian Chen to the kingdom's treasury. Right behind them, the entire crowd of officials and soldiers followed with anxious faces. Quickly, Jian Chen and the king arrived at the treasury. By the order of the king, the soldiers immediately opened the gates and allowed them entry. The treasury was situated underground in the middle of the palace and was split into several different areas where items of every shape and size could be seen. Jian Chen had the king first show him where the monster cores were being held. It was an expansive area with several different boxes laid out. There was a strange energy that could be seen flowing from the boxes, and when opened, several dozen space belts could be seen arranged inside. Sweeping past them, he disregarded the boxes that contained the Class 1 and Class 2 monster cores since there were far too many to be counted. Arriving at the later boxes, Jian Chen picked up a space belt. Each one of these space belts had several words written on them denoting just how many monster cores there were in each one. 500 Class 3 monster cores. 621 Class 3 monster cores. 1000 Class 3 monster cores. 600 Class 4 monster cores. 530 Class 4 monster cores. Each one of the space belts had been categorized between Class 3, Class 4, and Class 5 monster cores with at least 500 cores within them. There was at the very least 60 or 70,000 Class 3 monster cores, 10,000 Class 4 monster cores, and around 400 Class 5 monster cores. Looking at the numbers written on the space belts, even Jian Chen couldn't help but sigh at the extraordinary amount. The amount here had far exceeded what he had anticipated and had left him tongue-tied. However, when he thought about how the Piyang kingdom had well over 700 million people, he began to calm down a bit. This was the treasury of the entire kingdom, and if he were to take out several piles of monster cores, it would cause no big ripple among the kingdom. Perhaps this depository of monster cores was the result of dozens of years of collection. Jian Chen decided to take every space belt into his space ring. Even the Class 1 and Class 2 monster cores had not been spared. Since he had several space rings with sufficient space, there was no harm in taking them all. Seeing how Jian Chen was taking every single monster core, the king had a look of absolute anger, but even if he wanted to cry in grief, he wouldn't be capable of shedding a tear. With a mental sigh, he knew from this moment on, if the Piyang kingdom did not collapse, then it would most certainly fall in power for a very long time. Afterward, Jian Chen arrived at the area of the treasury where the money was contained. After cleaning up the entire place, Jian Chen now had a large sum of purple coins. If he calculated the sum, there would probably be well over 100 million purple coins in total since this was the liquidated assets of the entire kingdom. Chapter 413, The Return. By now, Jian Chen had already plundered the entirety of the treasury. The Piyang kingdom was not financially unstable now, nor had the entire economy halted, and this was better than killing every single high-ranking official and able-bodied person. After all, these officials were still the strongest in the kingdom, and without them, there would be no one to supervise the fallout from the looting. In such a politically, financially, and physically unstable state, it was truly a terrifying situation to be in, especially in a world that revered strength as power. After taking all of the purple coins, Jian Chen turned around and began to look into every single remaining thing of interest left in the treasury. Soon enough, Jian Chen left the treasury and walked outside where a large group of strong-looking soldiers and officials stood still, not fearing to stand their ground. "Sire, you've cleaned out the treasury and ordered the troops to return from the borders. Shouldn't you release His Majesty?" A general cried out in anger. Jian Chen smiled. "Who said I would let him go? He has caused millions of people from my Qiangan kingdom to die. If I were to let him go, those who have died in this war would never be able to rest in peace. Those parents who lost their children will never forgive me for this wasted opportunity." Jian Chen's response caused everyone else to instantly go into an uproar. "Do you wish to execute His Majesty then? Do you not fear the wrath of us all? Or the entire might of the army invading your Qiangan kingdom?" Jian Chen's eyes narrowed dangerously as killing intent began to leak out of him, permeating the area. With an icy voice, he spoke. "Do you wish to see whether or not I will slaughter everyone in this palace down to the last dog?" At this, the generals froze up, fearing to say anything that could make the matter worse. In their eyes, a hint of fear could be seen as they realized the consequence of their words. If Jianshan were to truly massacre all of the inhabitants of the palace, then there would be no one here able to stop him. After all, he was an individual that had easily killed 2 Heaven Saint Masters. Without speaking any more words, Jianshan grabbed the king by his shoulder and flew into the air. In an instant, he disappeared into the sky, causing everyone to look at him go with wide eyes, shocked at how their very own king had been taken prisoner. Even worse, they had no power to stop it. The group of generals stared angrily at the speck that was Jianshan with their eyes smoldering with hatred. After a long moment, they could only sigh with pessimistic expressions. Although their Pingyang kingdom was not considered a superpower, their population of 700 million was not a small amount either. But on this very day, a single youth had been able to storm into the palace and take the king right in front of everyone's eyes. No matter how much they would try to scrub and wash, this was a mark of humiliation that would never fade. Jianshan continued to fly through the air with the king in hand. He had originally planned to kill every single human in the palace, but the words the king had said in the underground labyrinth had resonated with him. They allowed him to remember that even the soldiers had their own children and parents. Although killing him would quite literally only take a moment to think about, this one thought would also lead to many orphans being created, and just as many parents seeing their own children die before them. Because of this and what Elder Xiao had spoken to him about, back in the village, Jianshan had changed his mind. Instead of starting a massacre, he had given up on the idea. Furthermore, Jianshan did not wish to have the blood of innocents on his hands. Continuing to fly through several villages, it took them another 2 hours before Jianshan and the king arrived back at the northern stronghold. Then, in front of the surprised looks of all the soldiers on the stronghold wall, they descended. As soon as Jianshan descended, a group of injured soldiers immediately sprung up to surround him with anxious eyes. Each one was afraid that Jianshan was an enemy. One of the generals left protecting the stronghold immediately rushed on over to take charge of the anxious situation. All of the experts of the stronghold had just left, and a new Heaven Saint Master suddenly arrived. If this was an enemy, then there would be no way for them to stop this man from overtaking the entire stronghold. The elder's eyes swept over Jianshan for a moment before quickly landing upon the king of the Pingyang kingdom with a startled look. The king of the Pingyang kingdom? Just what reason are you here? State your reason for arrival. The general's eyes hardened as he took on an unwelcoming look to the 2 newcomers. Knowing that the general was misunderstanding the situation, he waved his hands. The general misunderstands. I have captured the king of the Pingyang kingdom. He is nothing more than a prisoner now. What, the king of the Pingyang kingdom is your prisoner? The general was confused, but shocked. Correct, he is now our prisoner. Where might the 5 imperial advisors from the Qiangan kingdom be? At the mention of the 5 imperial advisors, the general looked shocked once more before thinking with a panicked hurry. Could sire know the 5 imperial advisors from the Qiangan kingdom? Those 5 and I came here from the Qiangan kingdom together. We only split roads halfway here. While they assisted the kingdom, I went to the neighboring Pingyang kingdom. Jianshan spoke. The general immediately smiled with a great big smile on his face. Could you be the youth that killed the 4 Heaven Saint Masters from the Pingyang kingdom? Jianshan nodded. Correct, that is me. With this confirmation, the general's face split into a smile and immediately loosened from his tense state. Even the look he was giving Jianshan changed. When the soldiers realized that this youth was no enemy, they too let out sighs in relief and also smiled. They welcomed any allied Heaven Saint Master since they were extremely crucial in such a moment. It was in a battle that their true worth came out and inspired soldiers with their strength. The only one with a sour expression was the king of the Pingyang kingdom. The situation had grown far more dire than he had thought. He had no idea that the Jessan kingdom had somehow managed to become friends with one of the 8 great powers, the Qiangan kingdom. For that kingdom to even be willing to dispatch imperial advisors to help was already bad news for their enemies. Furthermore, to hear that his 4 Heaven Saint Masters that were sent here were killed was a devastating blow. How many Heaven Saint Masters from the Pingyang kingdom died? Despite being a captive, the king of the Pingyang kingdom couldn't help but ask still. A Heaven Saint Master was an extremely important factor to a kingdom. A loss of just a single one was already a tremendous blow that the Pingyang kingdom couldn't afford to take. The general of the northern stronghold began to laugh out loud. "My dear king, allow me to explain this to you. 3 days ago, Senior Chang Wuji was able to kill 2 of your Heaven Saint Masters with his Heaven tier battle skill. Later, Senior Chang Wuji had also been able to come back from the Pingyang Kingdom's fort with the heads of 4 more Heaven Saint Masters. Then, he later killed another with his battle skill. The last one had been killed along with the others from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, thanks to the Imperial advisors from the Qiangan Kingdom. Their heads now adorn the stronghold walls." Hearing this, the king of the Pingyang Kingdom began to sway slightly before falling to the ground. His Pingyang Kingdom had 10 Heaven Saint Masters, and 8 of them had been killed as a result of war. If he added the 2 that died back in the palace, then that meant all 10 of his Heaven Saint Masters had been killed. This was a monumental loss for the kingdom, one that the king barely avoided fainted from after hearing the news. The general's eyes gleamed as he looked at the king before cupping his hands and bowing to Jian Shen. "Fellow brother, in what way might you suggest punishing this king here?" Jian Shen waved his hands and spoke, "Do as you please with him." With a great big smile, he called out to several soldiers to tie up the king until further notice with an enthusiastic voice. Afterward, the general explained the situation to Jian Shen. Despite being treated like a guest, Jian Shen managed to have every single remaining high-ranking officer come and greet him. Once they realized that he was the mysterious entity that had killed 4 Heaven Saint Masters and brought back the king of the Pingyang Kingdom as a captive, they all looked at Jian Shen with adoration. Sitting on a stool, Jian Shen looked at the nearby gates with a complex look. His eyes could reveal a glint of anticipation as well as some anxiety. The general was very good at discerning body language, and so he was curious at what caused such a reaction from Jian Shen. Without giving away his curiosity, he smiled, "Fellow brother, might I ask if you are an Imperial advisor from the Qiangan Kingdom?" Absent-mindedly, Jian Shen nodded his head before speaking, "General, is there anyone from the Changyang clan here?" With a confused look, the general shook his head. "I'm afraid to disappoint, but because of the situation in the other 3 strongholds, the Changyang clan has all been mobilized. Even the 2 Heaven Saint Masters from this stronghold were relocated to help mediate the problems." Hearing this, Jian Shen had a disappointed look. Then where might the young lord of the Changyang clan be? At this question, the general couldn't help but look at Jian Shen oddly. The young master of the Changyang clan had his limbs severed. He was escorted back to Lore City to recover with several people this afternoon. Jian Shen's question caused the general to feel skeptical. The Jessan Kingdom and the Qiangan Kingdom had no relations to each other as far as he knew. But today, the Qiangan Kingdom's Imperial advisors had come by to provide assistance for them. Furthermore, this youth was also an Imperial advisor but had also some sort of connection to the Changyang clan. Connecting the two together, the general couldn't help but think, could this youth in front of him be responsible for the Qiangan Kingdom coming to the Jessan Kingdom for assistance? Although he was skeptical, the general didn't ask too many questions. He knew it wasn't his place to ask. Upon hearing that the Changyang clan had left the area, Jian Shen could barely contain his disappointment. The general could see the range of emotions flashing through his face and could use that to confirm his suspicions. Chapter 414, Hurry to the West. Although he was skeptical, the general didn't ask too many questions. He knew it wasn't his place to ask. Upon hearing that the Changyang clan had left the area, Jian Shen could barely contain his disappointment. The general could see the range of emotions flashing through his face and could use that to confirm his suspicions. Imperial advisor, although our northern stronghold is stabilized, the other 3 strongholds are still in dire straits. The enemy is nearly at the Imperial city, meaning our Jessan Kingdom is in mortal danger. If you could assist us, our Jessan Kingdom will survive this ordeal. The elder pleaded. Although Jian Shen's strength wasn't something he was clear on, Chang Wuji's words and Jian Shen's capture of the Pingyang Kingdom's king was more than enough for him to trust Jian Shen's ability. His words caused Jian Shen to look grim with hesitation. Then with another sigh, he began to inquire about the state of the other 3 strongholds. That same night Jianshan left, headed to the western stronghold, since it was the closest one from his current location and the most precarious one as well. Although Jianshan wanted to go back home now that he was in the Jessan kingdom, there was a war to fight. Without delay, he knew he had to help the Jessan kingdom resolve this issue, so he resisted the urge to return home for a moment longer. When everything was stabilized, he would go back home. The northern stronghold wasn't all that far away from the western stronghold. After 4 hours of traveling, Jianshan arrived at his destination, but the hidden dragon kingdom had already invaded the area and the stronghold had the banners of the enemy kingdom flying overhead. Over 1 million soldiers were garrisoned inside while steady streams of supplies and soldiers were streaming toward the Jessan kingdom's imperial city. The army of the hidden dragon kingdom had already broke through into the Jessan kingdom's territory. By now, the stronghold was only serving as their temporary supply station, so there were no Heaven Saint Masters there. Jianshan was at least 1,000 meters in the air and was concealed by the darkness, so the soldiers down below wouldn't have been able to detect the fact that a Heaven Saint Master was overhead. Without any more hesitation, Jianshan wrapped himself with the wind element before continuing to fly farther into the Jessan kingdom. An hour later, Jianshan arrived at a second-class city. By now, it had been completely occupied by the army of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom's army and the flags from the Jessan Kingdom had been replaced with the Hidden Dragon Kingdom. Jianshan's eyes gleamed brightly for a moment with a noticeable light before heading in the direction of the path the army was traveling. After flying for several minutes, a single cannon shot could be heard before a bright burst of light could be seen. A single magical crystal cannon had exploded, shooting a burst of magic through the dark sky before impacting the ground with a loud bang. With this loud bang, the Hidden Dragon Kingdom and the Jessan Kingdom were ushered into another battle. Not even bothering to conceal himself, Jianshan instantly shot past the Hidden Dragon Kingdom's army tents and toward another city. The soldiers that had evacuated from the western stronghold were now holed up in a first-class city and relied upon the superior walls it boasted in order to defend themselves from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom. Jianshan's figure shot over the walls of the first-class city, but before his legs could even land on the ground, a dozen of arm-thick crossbolts shot toward him. Each one of the Jessan Kingdom's soldiers thought him to be an enemy, so they did not hold back in trying to kill him. With a single thought, Jianshan forced the crossbolts to stop 3 meters away from him and float harmlessly in midair. Afterward, they lost any source of support and fell back down onto the city walls with a loud clanging sound. Suddenly, 2 Heaven Saint Masters flew forward in a burst of red and yellow light. But when they saw Jianshan's figure, their faces had looks of joy to them before hurriedly cupping their hands. "We pay our respects to the Imperial Protector." These 2 men were Imperial advisors from the Qiangan Kingdom called Dongi Junbai and Chao Kachin, a 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master and a 3rd cycle Heaven Saint Master. Both of these Heaven Saint Masters were known to the soldiers on the city walls, so when they saw the 2 paying their respects to Jianshan, they instantly realized that he was not an enemy. Straight away, a relieved look could be seen on their faces as they stared at Jianshan with new looks of interest. Noticing just how pale both Heaven Saint Masters were, Jianshan grew serious. "Are you 2 injured?" The 2 nodded their heads. Before Dongi Junbai spoke, "Imperial Protector, the 2 experts located at the western stronghold were already killed by the Hidden Dragon Kingdom. Only 1 expert remains alive with serious injuries. However, at this point in time, his fighting strength isn't even at half strength. Moreover, the Hidden Dragon Kingdom has 5 Heaven Saint Masters. Not too long ago, the 2 of us went against those 5. While they were forced back, the both of us were injured as a result." Jianshan nodded his head and headed inside one of the more luxurious inns in the city. This inn was previously for private usage, but because of the battle, it had been temporarily repurposed for the use of the army. Transformed into a strategy room, Dongi Junbai, Chao Kachin and the injured Heaven Saint Masters from the Jessan Kingdom were the ones providing leadership over the soldiers in this area. With the Imperial Protector personally coming here, every single high-ranking officer paid their respects to Jianshan. Even the injured Heaven Saint Master stopped his healing treatment in order to go see Jianshan without saying a word. Although Jianshan looked to be around 20 years old, his status was still quite high-ranking. With both the Imperial advisors from the Qiangan kingdom revering him, none of the others could see him as a mere 20-year-old youth. Within the Tianyuan continent, secret methods to recover one's youth were not impossible. Many of the officers rose up to greet Jian Shen with loud respectful greetings in a careful manner as if afraid of saying the wrong thing. Even the Heaven Saint Master looked at Jian Shen with a respectful but enthusiastic look. Among the chatter, Jian Shen recognized this Heaven Saint Master as someone from the Imperial Palace. He was once a commander named Tian Xing. However, after making the breakthrough to become a Heaven Saint Master, his status had immediately elevated, promoting him to an Imperial advisor of the Jessan Kingdom. After giving several words of greeting to everyone, he immediately assumed the leading position and began to converse with everyone about the situation. Imperial Protector, the enemy army triumphs us in terms of number, meaning our own army will lose without a doubt. If we wish to score a victory, then we must completely annihilate the enemy Heaven Saint Masters. Correct, the Heaven Saint Masters are the pillars of support for the enemy side. If they were to die, then those soldiers would be irrevocably affected by their loss. And if they were to all die, then our soldiers would feel less pressure than before. As a result, it may be possible for us to turn the tides and deliver a crushing victory. Several commanders began to give their own perspective of the situation. Imperial Protector, the enemy side has 5 Heaven Saint Masters. 2 second cycle, 2 third cycle, and a single 4th cycle Heaven Saint Master. If we join together and use our Heaven tier battle skills, then we may be able to kill them all in one blow. Chao Kachin proposed. I agree. Chao Kachin and I were able to fight the 5 of them to a standstill. If we were to add the Imperial Protector to the mix, then we would be able to kill them all without a problem. Deng Yijunbai agreed. Hearing the 2 Imperial advisors speak, the commanders sitting around the table were all stunned. If the 5 enemy Heaven Saint Masters were to all truly be killed, they would be able to transform a crushing defeat into a stunning victory. Jian Shen nodded his head slightly at this, making everyone believe that he too was thinking of the same plan and wished to do so. But then Jian Shen slowly stood up. Deng Yijunbai, Chao Kachin, you two go down and recover your strength. After you are healed, head for the Eastern Stronghold. Imperial Protector, do you plan to go against the 5 Heaven Saint Masters by yourself? Chao Kachin spoke with surprise. Imperial Advisor, the enemy has 5 people. Although they do not possess a Heaven tier battle skill, but their combined might is still no easy force to contend with. The 3 of us could easily kill them. Deng Yijunbai spoke seriously. Jian Shen shook his head, there's no need. I will go alone. In this moment, the other 2 strongholds are in bigger danger than this city, thus you two need to hurry to help out. Jian Shen's words stunned the entire table in silence. For him to go against 5 Heaven Saint Masters by himself, this Imperial Protector had to be truly strong. To have an Imperial Protector of the Qiangan Kingdom personally come to help out the Jessan Kingdom, everyone was so happy that they felt as if they were dreaming. At his words, Chao Kachin and Deng Yijunbai spoke no more and went down to recover their wounds. Afterward, Jian Shen left the inn and flew in the direction of the stronghold. By now, the 5 Heaven Saint Masters from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom were injured, meaning killing them would be an easy task. Chapter 4:15, The Midnight Battle. It was an extraordinarily dark night. One wouldn't be able to see their hand even if they looked right at it. The dark clouds completely hide the moon and plunged the earth into a world of darkness. There was no moonlight to be seen. The battle down below was extremely fierce. No matter where one looked, all one would be able to see would be a sea of torches as the Jessan Kingdom and the Hidden Dragon Kingdom clashed. Each and every second another person fell, leading to the ground being dyed red with blood and the city walls to be riddled with holes. A little farther away, a pile of bodies could be seen stacked on top of each other like a mountain. Bang! 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 The magical crystal cannons fixed atop the city walls continued to sound off, sending bursts of magical power with each explosion. Each shot impacted a dense group of soldiers, killing dozens with each one. Some of the enemy soldiers lost their limbs or were reduced to nothing but charcoal, leaving them all in either deep pain or death. The Hidden Dragon Kingdom and the Qiangan Kingdom had been fighting for an entire day now. Both sides had lost a catastrophic amount, totaling up to well over 200,000 soldiers lost in this battle alone. Charge, kill. The roaring of the soldiers could be constantly heard as another wave of 10,000 soldiers from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom charged at the wall. Whoosh! 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 Countless bolts began to fly through the air and struck down the enemy soldiers one after another. Their piercing power was far too strong, and they were able to penetrate through several soldiers at once. With great big cries, soldiers fell to the ground in droves. But the crossbows could only fire several more barrages before coming to an end. After such a long and intensive battle, the Qiangan Kingdom had already used up all of their bolts and the monster cores for their magical crystal cannons. The bolts they were firing now were created from the artisans and blacksmiths throughout the war. This meant that they could only shoot a few barrages before they would run out again. Suddenly, an explosion could be heard from the other side of the city wall before a part of the wall suddenly collapsed. The wall collapsed, burying countless soldiers underneath the rubble, and a hole was now exposed. Bang! Another explosion could be heard as yet another blast from a magical crystal cannon was fired straight at the city gates. The already slightly deformed gates were instantly blown back, crushing several soldiers right behind them. The loud roars of soldiers rang through the air as the army of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom began to flood past the gates, into the damaged city. Immediately rallying up an army of soldiers to protect the city gates, the soldiers of the Qiangan Kingdom tried to fend off the invaders so they could not gain access to the city. In a flash, another battle broke out with the vanguards of both sides slashing and stabbing at each other fiercely. At that moment, a faint azure light streaked forward before coming to a halt several meters above the city walls. As soon as the light appeared, a large, powerful aura began to cover the entire area. Faced with so much power, the space around the light began to distort. Almost as if the air was being removed from the atmosphere, the fighting soldiers down below began to feel as if there was a large boulder placed on top of their chests, making it hard for them to breathe. The power released by a Heaven Saint Master would be hard for an Earth Saint Master to be able to withstand. These soldiers were only ordinary civilians, so when the aura suddenly appeared, both sides were brought to a temporary ceasefire. Unable to even look up, their faces began to grow red from the exertion of trying to move. Qiangan floated in mid-air before looking up at the sky. A loud whistling sound could be heard throughout the area. Suddenly, the clouds thinned as if they had been blasted away from the sound, revealing the many stars hidden behind them. The soldiers down below were affected as well. The loud thunderous sound vibrated their eardrums, making them ring long after. Heaven Saint Masters of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, come out to die. Qiangan thundered. Enveloping himself with the wind element, he flew across the sky like an azure shooting star in the direction of the barracks of the enemy. As if responding to Qiangan's challenge, 5 large ripples of power exploded through the air before colliding against Qiangan. In the next moment, 5 figures began to float through the air. Back in the city, the still recuperating Dongi Junbai and Chao Kachin both landed on top of the walls with their eyes gleaming with lightning. Their eyes looked capable of illuminating the darkness and allowed them to see wherever they looked in a crystal-clear manner. Even the heavily injured Tian Xing was unable to sit around and met them on the city walls. The 3 of them were truly curious to see just how strong the Imperial Protector was in order for him to be able to kill 5 Heaven Saint Masters by himself. Aside from those 3, the generals of the Qiangan Kingdom gathered around as well, concentrating deeply on the battle yet to come. Qiangan's figure was like an arrow that had been shot toward the incoming 5 Heaven Saint Masters with a great amount of killing intent. "Humph, you say such words, but you've never even measured yourself to us." A loud voice could be heard as a Heaven Saint Master from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom called out in contempt. Without another word, Qiangan's eyes gained an electrifying glow to them as he continued to shoot toward the 5 Heaven Saint Masters. A glow of azure and violet sword chi could be seen from his fingers, and killing intent leaked from his entire body. In a flash, he began to form the origin energy with the sole intention to kill the Heaven Saint Masters as soon as possible. "Since you've come here to die, allow me to do you the honors." A Heaven Saint Master spoke as he charged at him with his own saint weapon. Beneath them, the multitude of soldiers had forgotten about the enemy in front of them. Instead, every one of them looked up to the sky to watch the intense battle overhead. These soldiers felt an undeniable attractive force toward the Heaven Saint Masters, since each one of them knew in such a high-stakes battle, whichever side won would directly impact the outcome of this overall battle. 3 men quickly met in midair as 2 Heaven Saint Masters slashed at Jian Chen with their saint weapons without mercy. The origin energy sword that was in Jian Chen's hand quickly shot forward, clashing with the 2 other saint weapons. Upon contact, a great explosion could be heard as the saint force flew off from the 2 Heaven Saint Masters and covered all 3 men within the shockwave. The 2 Heaven Saint Masters from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom were naturally unaware of the origin energy of the sword spirits. So when the 2 sides made contact, the Heaven Saint Masters immediately found themselves at a loss and their saint weapons earned a new jagged crack. Because of this, they too felt themselves injured. With a look of shock, their mouths began to bleed blood. Taking advantage of their stupefied shock, Jian Chen's hand shot forward once more. The origin energy streaked through the dark night once more, catching one of the 2 Heaven Saint Masters off guard. In the next moment, his head was cut off and his soul instantly vanquished by Jian Chen. At this moment, the other Heaven Saint Master regained his bearings just in time to see his comrade die right beside him. Frightened, he gave up the idea of fighting Jian Chen and tried to fly back toward the other 3 Heaven Saint Masters. "Everyone forward. Be careful of his saint weapon and make sure yours doesn't touch his." At the cry for help, the 3 other Heaven Saint Masters that were originally intending on just watching were surprised. But without hesitation, they instantly leaped into the fray and began to fight Jian Chen as a team of 4. With the 4 Heaven Saint Masters against him, Jian Chen continued to wave his origin energy-made sword around. The azure and violet sword Qi continued to shine brightly in the night sky, dancing along with the origin energy. The 4 Heaven Saint Masters were now been cautious about crossing swords with Jian Chen. Thus, their strikes avoided Jian Chen's weapon, always making sure to dodge it, ultimately bringing them to a state of annoyance. Advanced Earth Tier Battle Skill, Gale Massacre. An explosive voice called out as a Heaven Saint Master began to use his battle skill. The wind in the air began to pick up quickly before enveloping Jian Chen in a giant gale. Within the cyclone of wind, a bright blade of wind appeared before cutting apart at Jian Chen from every angle. Seeing the restricted Jian Chen, the other 3 Heaven Saint Masters quickly began to use their battle skills as well. Advanced Earth Tier Battle Skill, Abyssal Sword Law. Third Secret of Water Control, Water to Ice Creation. Fifth form of the Heavy Sword, Void Splitter. With the 4 shouts, the 4 Heaven Saint Masters finally used their Earth Tier battle skills in an attempt to lock Jian Chen in place with their pressure. With a snort, Jian Chen's eyes began to gleam as he began to control the wind around him. With his stronger thoughts, he was able to tame the great winds and shot the origin energy of the sword straight at the other 3 battle skills. Bang! Following a loud explosion, a ripple of energy washed over the area with a destructive force far stronger than the gale. There was no force that could stop it, and the soldiers underneath were heavily affected. Many of the barracks of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom were damaged. Protect the city walls. Dongi Junbai cried out before he and Chao Kachin activated a barrier of saint force which appeared over the city walls. By now the first-class city had been struck many times over by many energy waves and other damaging objects. With so many people on it, if it were to collapse, the casualties would be horrendous. Chapter 4:16, Killing 5 Heaven Saint Masters one after another. Just as Dongi Junbai and Chao Kachin finished spreading out their saint force to protect the city walls, there was a strong ripple of energy that diffused over the walls from the impact of the 4 Heaven Saint Masters' battle skills. Combined with the fact that it had not been all that far away, the barrier put up by the 2 began to sway, causing the 2 to find it difficult to maintain. Although they were both Heaven Saint Masters of a high level, the energy required to protect the walls was far too much for them to handle. If Jian Shen had been fighting the four any closer than they were now, even Dongyi Junbai and Chao Kachin would not be able to protect the city walls. With the 5 men fighting in midair, not a single of the 5 were able to defend against the energy shockwave. Each one of them continued to fly back due to the blast, but the blast itself was not of any extreme danger to them. Since each one of them were flying in midair without any support, it was hard to maintain stable footing. The 4 Heaven Saint Masters flew back with some blood coming out from their mouths. With pale faces and heavy wounds, each one of them looked down at their saint weapons only to see the jagged parts of their blades from where Jian Chen's origin energy had struck. What power does he possess for it to be this terrifying? Be careful, no matter what, you cannot allow your saint weapon to come in contact with his own weapon. The Heaven Saint Masters continued to call out in warning to each other while trying to hold back their fear. Jian Chen's eyes had already transformed to glow azure and violet in color. His left eye flashed with violet while his right eye shined with azure. This sight made him look like a phantom who did not have the eyes of a regular human. Unexpectedly, all of the bloody bolts and pieces of rubble on the ground began to levitate with a strange power. Floating up, they began to glow azure and violet in color. Like moths to a flame, they instantly shot toward the hidden Dragon Kingdom's Heaven Saint Masters like bolts of lightning. Still completely intoxicated with the damaged parts of their saint weapons, the Heaven Saint Masters hadn't even realized what was happening underneath them. Caught off guard, their bodies were riddled with holes, causing them to cough out copious amounts of blood. Upon being inflicted with such pain, each one of the 4 Heaven Saint Masters let out a cry of shock and looked down only to be aghast at the things coming at them. Blast it all, what's all this? One of them couldn't help but curse out loud. Without any hesitation, he flew into the air and began to rotate the saint force around his body as a way to protect his body from the flying objects down below. When the bolts and shattered pieces of stone made contact with the protective covering, it only managed to shake for a moment before the covering began to crack. At this stage, the saint force only managed to slow down the advances of the bolts and stones. Earth armor. The earth attributed elder roared as he began to collect all of the earth element within the world around his body to form a sturdy armor. Since it was made from the sturdiest earth element, its defensive properties were extremely strong and could withstand the attacks coming at him. Jian Chen's left hand spread out open in the air, causing 3 thick bolts to hover beside him for a moment. The azure and violet sword chi began to envelop the 3 even more before spiraling toward the earth armor elder with a faster speed than before. The elder's ears began to twitch as he discovered the source and hastily moved to protect himself from the 3 bolts with his saint weapon. Ding ding ding. 3 clear sounds could be heard as the elder knocked away the 3 crossbolts. However, the ferocity of the crossbolts was strong enough to cause the elder's body to waver and fly back. At the same time, Jian Chen's right hand had formed the origin energy once more. With a flash of light, it quickly flew toward the elder's head right in between his eyebrows. At such a close distance, the elder was unable to dodge. Without any other choice, he could only use his own saint weapon to try and block the attack. Both sides collided against each other as the elder's saint weapon earned a new jagged chip and he lost another mouthful of blood. With this, his fighting strength was greatly hampered. Taking advantage of this, Jian Chen struck out once more with the origin energy straight through the elder's head, extinguishing his soul straight away. Jian Chen's left hand was like lightning as it took the elder's space ring from his hand. Then turning back to the other 3, he slashed out at them once more. By now, his origin energy served to replace the blade of the light wind sword. PCHT. Another Heaven Saint Master had his head separated from his shoulders. He tumbled through the air but was suddenly enveloped in a bubble of air and flew away from the area. 5th form of the heavy sword, Void Splitter. 3rd secret of water control, water to ice creation. The remaining 2 Heaven Saint Masters used their battle skills once more in hopes of killing Jian Chen so that the beheaded Heaven Saint Master could escape and recuperate later. Jian Chen let out a sneer in disdain before flashing his origin energy sword. Blocking the 2 attacks, he let another bolt shoot straight at the escaping Heaven Saint Master. With a shot through the space between the eyebrows, the man had his soul destroyed, causing him to die completely. Bang! Another squall of energy exploded outward as the origin energy smashed against the two other battle skills. Engulfing the three men, the Saint Force continued to spread further away. Jian Chen's eyes flashed once more as he continued to control several bolts, shooting them toward the remaining two Heaven Saint Masters. At the same time, Jian Chen began to glow with an azure light as the wind element surrounded his body. Flying straight out of the energy shockwave, he flew toward the two Heaven Saint Masters and cut off their heads while they were distracted with the bolts. In the next moment, he destroyed their spirits with a stab through their heads. The 5 Heaven Saint Masters of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom had been completely annihilated. Back over at the Jessan Kingdom city, Dongyi Junbai, Chao Kaqin and Tian Xing had been utterly amazed. Each one looked at the levitating Jian Chen without a word to be said. After a while, Tian Xing had let out a sigh as he muttered, "The Imperial Protector of the Qiangan Kingdom is truly strong. I never would have imagined that within such a short amount of time, 5 of the Heaven Saint Masters from the Hidden Dragon Kingdom would be killed. With such a strength like this, then even a 6th cycle Heaven Saint Master would pose no challenge to him." At this, Dongyi Junbai and Chao Kaqin let out a sigh as well. Neither of the two could believe just how strong Jian Chen was. They were fully aware of the circumstance behind him and that he wasn't as old as everyone thought he was. He was truly a young man that couldn't even possibly be thought to be older than 30. I never imagined that the Imperial Protector's strength would exceed our anticipations that much. His talent is truly something to be feared. Chao Kaqin spoke with a tremble to his voice. Dongyi Junbai let out a sigh as well as he spoke in a quiet voice to Chao Kaqin to hear. The Imperial Protector was able to become a Heaven Saint Master at such a young age, that alone was enough to amaze us. But I never anticipated that he would be able to kill 5 Heaven Saint Masters so quickly. Perhaps in some amount of time, the Imperial Protector will become a true Saint Ruler. Who knows what method he uses to cultivate. At the mention of Saint Ruler, Dongyi Junbai had an envious look on his face. Jian Chen continued to float in the midnight air, waving his hand. Several space rings began to float up to him before he took them into his hand. Collecting them, Jian Chen began to stretch out his omnipresence before locating the commander in charge of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom's army. Chapter 4:17, Leaving for the east. Shrouding himself with the wind element, Jian Chen transformed into a bright ray of azure light headed in the direction of the commander of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom. Upon seeing Jian Chen fly over, the generals of the army instantly paled as one of them shouted out, "Crap, he's heading for the commander. Protect the commander. Run away, commander." As several generals cried out in warning, a man in armor, who looked around 60 years old, began to run away with several other men protecting him. The surrounding army began to remember just where they were. Despite 5 Heaven Saint Masters being killed and their morale taking a hit, they were still invigorated enough to fight and protect the commander's retreat. Seeing the hurried reactions of the enemy army, Jian Chen could only snort in contempt. Those generals were only Earth Saint Masters in strength. There was just no way for them to be able to protect the commander of the army like that. In an instant he drew far too close. With his finger, the sword chi began to jet out before instantly killing all of the Earth Saint Masters around. Without remorse, Jian Chen took advantage of the chaos to grab the shoulder of the commander and bring him back to the city that housed the Jessan Kingdom's soldiers right in front of everyone's surprised eyes. Although there were plenty of Earth Saint Master generals, they were no match for a Heaven Saint Master. They could only watch as their commander was carried away with a vehement glare. When Jian Chen dropped the commander onto the city walls, the soldiers of the Jessan Kingdom all let out a victorious war cry. Many of them had begun to cry with tears. The difference between the two armies in terms of numbers and amount of experts had been far too wide. Thus, the Jessan Kingdom's soldiers felt pressured by the Hidden Dragon Kingdom and could only rely on the terrain for support. At first, everyone had thought that the Jessan Kingdom would lose, causing many soldiers to fall into despair. What no one could have imagined was the fact that in such a short amount of time, the tides would turn almost instantaneously. The 5 Heaven Saint Masters of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom had been killed and the commander of the army had been captured. This was a joy that every soldier from the Jessan Kingdom couldn't contain. As for the soldiers of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, they had fallen into disarray and became unmotivated. The Heaven Saint Masters were unbelievably strong experts and were their moral support. With those moral supports gone, they were no longer ferocious and unafraid of death. Even their generals had been stupefied and shocked. The death of those 5 Heaven Saint Masters was an undeniably tremendous blow for their kingdom. Combined with the fact that their commander was gone, this situation had gone from a simple snowstorm to a snowstorm with a hailstorm on top of it. On top of the damaged city walls, many of the high-ranking military officers began to congratulate Jian Shen with loud and happy voices. Although Jian Shen looked around 20 years old, not a single one of them thought he was actually that young and believed that he was actually several hundred years old. Despite being captured by Jian Shen, the commander of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom was in no way afraid. Staring angrily at Jian Shen, he spoke, "Imperial Protector? Just which kingdom are you an Imperial Protector for? Since you stuck your nose into the affairs of our 4 combined kingdoms, are you not afraid that we would crush your affiliated kingdom?" The death of their 5 Heaven Saint Masters was too heavy of a blow for the Hidden Dragon Kingdom, thus the commander felt an inextinguishable hatred for Jian Shen. At this remark, everyone from the Jessan Kingdom could only jeer in laughter at the commander. Compared to the Qiangan Kingdom, which was one of the 8 great powers, the 4 allied kingdoms were nothing more than a piece of tofu that wouldn't even last for a single hit. Careful there, commander. Speak to the honored Imperial Protector with your most respectful voice, otherwise, you risk the wrath of the Qiangan Kingdom upon your kingdom. A general laughed. Hearing this, the commander of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom instantly blanched in fear. Qiangan Kingdom? Don't tell me you are speaking of one of the 8 great powers, that Qiangan Kingdom? Correct. The general spoke mockingly and proudly. To be able to have the Qiangan Kingdom support was something that the Jessan Kingdom could say was a good thing. The commander sneered, unconvinced. Don't think that you can scare me. I know all about your Jessan Kingdom. Just how would it be possible for your Jessan Kingdom to attract the friendship of such a powerful kingdom like the Qiangan Kingdom? To naively think that I would be frightened by such an obvious lie. Do you take Shi Yunfei, to be a 3-year-old child? Furious, the general of the Jessan Kingdom immediately bowed to Jian Shen. The enemy army's strongest have all been killed. Just what should we do next, sire? The other generals didn't dare dilly-dally behind and assumed respectful bows toward Jian Shen. Handing over the commander of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom to the generals, Jian Shen turned to Dongyi Junbai and Chao Kaqin. You two hurry up and rest, then head over to the southern stronghold. Right away. Dongyi Junbai and Chao Kaqin instantly replied. Their opinions of Jian Shen had changed drastically to the point of reverence. Whatever happened next was beneath Jian Shen's concerns. He had done what needed to be done, the rest would have to be taken care of by the Jessan Kingdom's generals. Returning to his inn to rest up for now, he blocked up the door so that none of the officers or chiefs that were trying to get to know him could get in. That same night, the city walls rang with noise as the generals continued to use words to intimidate the Hidden Dragon Kingdom's army and called out for their retreat. The highest-ranking officer of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom had already been captured by the Jessan Kingdom, irritating many soldiers of the enemy side. The death of their 5 Heaven Saint Masters and the capture of their commander was something that caused the morale of the Hidden Dragon Kingdom soldiers to hit rock bottom. Their fighting strength waned off, which forced the generals to discuss their plan of action. They deliberated for a moment before finally signaling a full retreat. They knew that since they had no more Heaven Saint Masters, in the case that the Jessan Kingdom were to use their Heaven Saint Masters to fight the army, there would be no one to stop them. In the end, all they would be doing is marching to their deaths. Jian Shen's arrival blunted the danger that the Jessan Kingdom was facing for the time being. This feat caused many of the generals to feel complete respect. They had wanted to toast him, but he had declined. With the danger gone temporarily, the Jessan Kingdom's soldiers began to nurse their wounds for the time being. Many artisans and blacksmiths continued to repair the damage around the walls so that they could protect themselves from the next invasion. By the afternoon of the second day, Chao Kaqin and Dongyi Junbai had been fully healed by the 10 Heaven Saint Masters looking after them. With their wounds fully healed, they immediately followed Jian Chen's command to fly to the southern stronghold. It was remarkably calm afterward. Jian Chen stayed for another 2 days so that the wounds of Tianxing would be fully healed before he left to the eastern stronghold. The Hidden Dragon Kingdom had 9 Heaven Saint Masters. 4 of them had been killed at the northern stronghold and another 5 over at this stronghold. This meant that the Hidden Dragon Kingdom had no more Heaven Saint Masters to spare. With Tianxing as the sole remaining Heaven Saint Master, there was no threat to the Jessan Kingdom at this moment. The distance between the eastern and western strongholds was extremely vast and was basically the entire length of the Jessan Kingdom itself. With so many kilometers in between, it would take Jian Chen 6 to 8 hours before he would arrive at his destination. The eastern stronghold had been attacked by the Blue Wind Kingdom. Chasing after the stragglers of the Jessan Kingdom, the Blue Wind Kingdom had encroached deeply within the Jessan Kingdom's territory. After flying for 4 hours, Jian Chen stopped about 3,000 kilometers away from the eastern stronghold. That was because not too far away from him at a giant city, a dozen Heaven Saint Masters were currently fighting intensely with a sound that shook the heavens itself. Jian Chen's eyes continued to stare deeply at the fighters so that he could make the combatants. In the next moment, his eyes narrowed in coldness. In total, there were 15 men fighting. It was 11 people against 4. Among the 4, Jian Chen recognized 2 of them, Kafir of Kargath Academy and Xiao Han the Imperial Advisor. The other 2 he didn't know, but they had to be from the Jessan Kingdom. The difference between the 2 sides was massive. 3 of the Jessan Kingdom fighters were heavily injured and bloody, leaving Xiao Han to fight with 5 people by himself. Thus, his injuries were the most severe out of the 4 of them. A single hole could be seen in his chest with blood flowing freely from it. At this sight, Jian Chen's eyes frosted over as killing intent began to radiate from his body before he flew toward the fight. At the same time, several stones began to levitate from the dozen people fighting. Glowing brightly with azure and violet light, they flew at the 11 Heaven Saint Masters and gave the remaining 4 men less pressure to deal with. Imperial Protector. Xiao Han cried out with relief. Chapter 4:18, Sneak Attack. Seeing the surprised look on Xiao Tian's face, the group from the Blue Wind Kingdom immediately knew that Jian Chen was related to the Jessan Kingdom. However, their expression didn't change too much as they knew that the difference between the 2 sides was far too huge for a single person to make much of a difference. But the Jessan Kingdom men were all joyous. Being an imperial protector of the Qiangan Kingdom must mean that that person had a tremendous amount of power. Possibly enough for him to beat back the rest by himself. The sand and stones in the air continued to fly at the Heaven Saint Masters from the Blue Wind Kingdom, much to the disdain of those very same Heaven Saint Masters. Ignoring them, they only allowed a shroud of Saint Force to cover their bodies to protect themselves from them before charging straight at the newest arrival with merciless stares. Suddenly, the sands that were traveling at them instantly penetrated through their Saint Force and perforated every single one of their bodies full of holes. The group of Heaven Saint Masters from the Blue Wind Kingdom instantly grew shocked. They quickly threw up another barrier of Saint Force to protect their bodies. They then pushed out the sand, and were no longer careless with the sand that invaded the air. They tried to protect their bodies from the widespread attack, but still found it difficult to defend against. Their Saint Force constantly wavered from the attempt to do so and looked as if they were in danger at any given moment. At the same time, a strong amount of pressure filled the air before transforming into a bright gleam of fire that gathered and wrapped around Xiao Tian's head. It's a Heaven-tier battle skill. Quick, don't let him use it. A Heaven-tier battle skill? He actually had one? The 11 Heaven Saint Masters were quickly sent into disarray as they gawked at Xiao Tian. Knowing just how strong a Heaven-tier battle skill was, their elderly faces grew pale and immediately ignored Jian Chen as their opponent. Ignoring the azure and violet sands that were attacking them, they all immediately flew for Xiao Tian in an attempt to kill him before he could use his battle skill. Seeing the 11 Heaven Saint Masters come charging at him, Xiao Tian let out a cruel sneer. With a low roar, the pressure in the world instantly tripled, locking everyone in place before waving his hand violently. The bright red ray of light instantly flashed once before the sword in Xiao Tian's hand exploded with fiery light and washed over the 11 Heaven Saint Masters. There was a faint crack in the sky that could be seen from where the sword trailed behind. This was the might of a heaven-tier battle skill, so strong that it could break the limits of the world itself and could fracture the sky. The 11 Heaven Saint Masters desperately tried to use their own strongest battle skill. However, their highest one was only an advanced Earth-tier battle skill, a far cry away from a Heaven-tier battle skill. Bang! Following a loud explosive bang that seemed as if the horizon itself had exploded, a shockwave rang the ears of everyone around. For a short moment, everyone was unable to hear anything that was happening around them. Shortly afterward, an extremely massive amount of energy capable of toppling mountains rolled into the world with terrifying power. With all of the energy billowing outward, the entire ground beneath them began to crack into a series of spider webs before the earth was pressed deeper down, folding into itself. Xiao Tian's Heaven-tier battle skill was of no low rank, and combined with his 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master strength, the total power was at a terrifyingly high volume. The berserk energy could be seen exceeding several kilometers as hundreds of soldiers from the Blue Wind Kingdom were destroyed by the energy without any chance of survival. Even the first-class city behind them took a generous amount of damage. Several parts of the city walls collapsed, burying some soldiers underneath the rubble and causing a terrific amount of damage. Several of the buildings and homes within the city toppled over, leaving the city in a mess. Even Jian Chen's body was sent flying back for several kilometers before he could stabilize himself. He could only see a bright flash of fire in front of him, nothing else. Spreading out his omnipresence, Jian Chen noted with some joy that the flames did not affect his ability. After spreading it out 15 kilometers around the fallout, he easily spotted everyone's position. Thanks to the battle skill, everyone had been offset from their original positions. Because of the collaborated effort of the 11 Heaven Saint Masters, they did not die from the Heaven-tier battle skill. At most, they were heavily injured and had pale faces, but nothing life-threatening. Jian Chen's eyes flashed brightly as he began to control the fire element to form 3 separate arrows made of pure fire. With a whistling sound, they began to travel toward the closest 3 Heaven Saint Masters. As the arrow flew through the air, Jian Chen followed close behind in the direction of the next closest group. The 3 Heaven Saint Masters were all heavily injured and weren't expecting any attack to come directly after that battle skill. Unable to evade the attack or even detect it, the 3 arrows slammed into their heads. With an explosive bang, their heads exploded, killing them instantly along with their souls. Seeing just how easily they were killed, even Jian Chen thought that it would have been harder to do so. However, he had to concede that right now was the perfect time for a sneak attack. Unwilling to miss another opportunity, he formed another 3 arrows made of fire before shooting them for the next 3 Heaven Saint Masters. All of the Heaven Saint Masters were deeply injured and the fallout from the battle skill had still not yet stabilized, hampering their vision still. Their situational awareness was at their lowest point along with their strength. Thus when Jian Chen unleashed his attack, they were killed without a problem. In a single moment, Jian Chen had killed 6 Heaven Saint Masters without their notice. However, Jian Chen still continued to summon another 3 arrows to bring down the next trio of enemies. By this point the energy from the battle skill had died down. Jian Chen's fire arrows were no longer an undetected presence and immediately flared up on everyone's radar. A single elder took notice and cried out, "Be careful everyone," before bringing up his saint weapon to defend himself. Hearing the startled shout, everyone instantly went on guard. But out of the 3 people that Jian Chen had targeted, only 2 of them managed to bring up their saint weapons in time while the weaker third one succumbed to the arrow and died. Using the opportunity from the battle skill to strike, Jian Chen had covertly killed 7 Heaven Saint Masters in the blink of an eye. This was by far a monumental blow to the Blue Wind Kingdom, who only had 4 Heaven Saint Masters remaining, who had all been heavily injured by Xiao Tian. Xiao Tian's figure began to waver in midair before he closed his eyes and began to plummet downward. Because of his serious wounds and his usage of the Heaven-tier battle skill, he was all out of saint force. Combined with his blood loss, he was already on the verge of fainting. Startled, Qiangan ignored the remaining few Heaven Saint Masters and instantly flew to Qiangan. The Blue Wind Kingdom had only 4 heavily injured people left, while the other side had a mysterious youth with a strange power. After such an outcome, they had no desire to stay and fight. Mustering the last of their energy, the remaining 4 men all fled the area, instantly disappearing from sight. Qiangan only glared at them icily without making an attempt to follow them. Instead, he flew to Qiangan and immediately took out several radiant spirit pills from his space ring and fed them to him. At this moment, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters from the Qiangan Kingdom all flew toward Qiangan curiously. Although they hadn't met Qiangan before, they had heard what Qiangan had called him. To be called an Imperial Protector by Qiangan of the Qiangan Kingdom, that was by no means a low status. Among the 3, Kafir had a vacant look on his face. He had learned of the relationship between the Qiangan Kingdom and the Qiangan Kingdom back at the northern stronghold, about how it was all because of this Imperial Protector. Qiangan had called this youth an Imperial Protector. Was he truly the one helping the Qiangan Kingdom? But no matter how much Kafir looked at the youth, he could not make the connection between the two and thus felt a little confused. Despite the confusion weighing heavily on his mind, Kafir could only speak. Honored Imperial Protector, I represent the Qiangan Kingdom wholeheartedly when I thank you for your assistance. Are Elder Qiangan's injuries serious? Slowly standing up, Qiangan looked at the headmaster of Kargath Academy with a series of mixed feelings. Several years ago, the headmaster had been an entity that he could barely hope to reach and could only stand to look up at. But now, this figure he had looked up to was now speaking to him in an extremely courteous manner. This was a feeling Qiangan would never get used to. He is quite heavily injured, but it is nothing life-threatening. Qiangan spoke. Honored Imperial Protector, why not bring Imperial Advisor Qiangan back to the city? We'll have the strongest Radiant Saint Masters treat his wounds. Kafir spoke. Qiangan nodded his head, that will do. Chapter 419, Interference of the Qiangan Kingdom. After the impact between Qiangan's Heaven-tier battle skill and the 11 Heaven Saint Masters, the first-class city known as Benevolent City had several kilometers of their wall collapse. Not only were the casualties high, but if they did not spend several months rebuilding the wall, the city would be doomed for sure. In this battle, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters from the Qiangan Kingdom and Qiangan were all badly injured. But compared to the loss of the Blue Wind Kingdom, the Qiangan Kingdom's injuries were inconsequential. With 7 Heaven Saint Masters dead and the remaining 4 fleeing from the city, the Blue Wind Kingdom's army had no desire to stay behind as well. The loss weighed heavily on their morale, and without any Heaven Saint Masters to protect them, the army didn't dare continue the invasion. Benevolent City was a first-class city with the city lord's mansion 30 kilometers away from any given entrance to the city. The commander of the army defending the city walls adopted the same methods from the western stronghold and transformed a nearby inn into a temporary strategy room. Within the inn, the Qiangan Kingdom's Radiant Saint Masters were hurriedly trying to heal the 4 heavily injured Heaven Saint Masters. Qiangan's status as an Imperial Protector was very high rank, therefore the general treated Qiangan extremely well along with the commander of the army. After a brief conversation with them, Qiangan understood the current situation of the eastern stronghold. At times, he inquired about the Qiangan clan, but to his disappointment, instead of coming to the eastern stronghold, they were at another stronghold. Thus, Qiangan's attempt at seeing his family was fruitless once more. At this moment, Qiangan had a serious look on his face. General Lu, how many Heaven Saint Masters does the Blue Wind Kingdom even have? There were 11 Heaven Saint Masters at the eastern stronghold. Does that mean they sent every single one of them to attack? General Lu was the highest-ranking official of the eastern stronghold. General Lu sighed for a moment before revealing a concerned look. Honored Imperial Protector, this is an answer I do not have. From the 11 Heaven Saint Masters you saw, 5 of them were from the Qiangan Kingdom. Qiangan Kingdom. Qiangan growled with a dangerous glint as he spoke. Could it be that the Qiangan Kingdom has decided to throw their lot into this war? General Lu nodded grimly at Qiangan. That may be true. Although the Qiangan Kingdom has sent no army over, 5 of the Heaven Saint Masters you saw today were indeed from their kingdom. With this answer, Qiangan went silent for a moment as he began to think. Occasionally, the glint in his eyes flashed ominously. General Lu, do you think you can tell me how many experts the Qiangan and Blue Wind Kingdom have and which ones were killed today? Qiangan's voice was oddly monotonous. Nodding, General Lu replied, Honored Imperial Protector, after inspecting their clothes, we have determined that 3 of them are from the Qiangan Kingdom while the remaining 4 are from the Blue Wind Kingdom. The Blue Wind Kingdom should have 8 Heaven Saint Masters, meaning there should theoretically be 4 left. The Qiangan Kingdom also has 8 Heaven Saint Masters, meaning there should be 5 left. Qiangan nodded his head as he pondered, You needn't worry about those Heaven Saint Masters then. I will take care of them. General Lu, if there is nothing left to discuss, feel free to head out first. Without any hint of disappointment on his face, the general stood up from the table and bowed to Qiangan. Yes, honored Imperial Protector. If the Imperial Protector needs anything, please call upon Lu Mao. With that, General Lu walked out of the room. Bang! Just as General Lu was about to leave the room, the door swung back open before falling off its hinges. In the next moment, a white blur shot into the room and onto Qiangan's chest. For a moment, Qiangan was stunned, but a rare smile greeted his face as he began to caress the white figure that was buried against his chest. The sudden white figure that had appeared in the room was the white tiger cub he had nearly forgotten about by the edge of the Qiangan Kingdom. Seeing how Qiangan was familiar with the white tiger cub, the initial anger that was on General Lu's face instantly disappeared. He had seen Xiao Tian bring the cub, so he was not unfamiliar with it. Honored Imperial Protector, seeing how the door is broken, I shall send someone over to fix it straight away. General Lu spoke before leaving the room. Moreover, the tiger cub had tears in its eyes as it looked at Qiangan with a look of sorrow. Both of its claws sank into Qiangan's clothes, rendering the clothes nearly useless. Both actions were a sign of its dissatisfaction with Qiangan. Continuing to pet the head of the tiger cub affectionately, Qiangan spoke a word of apology to it softly. Then, as if to console the cub, he took out several thousand-year ginseng for the tiger cub to eat. The tiger cub was confused momentarily before brightening up. As if forgetting about its unhappiness, it gobbled up the ginseng with a happy purr before yawning when it was finished. In a few moments, it fell asleep on Qiangan's lap. Seeing the tiger cub in such a cute fashion, Qiangan couldn't help but smile fondly. It had only been now that he had realized just how deep the tiger cub had come to like him. In a flash, 3 days went by. During 3 days, Qiangan continued to feed the tiger cub several heavenly resources in hopes that it would mature even faster. Qiangan had not forgotten Elder Xiu's words and tried to hasten its growth as soon as possible. Qiangan knew that Elder Xiu was not a person of empty words. Perhaps in the near future, there would definitely be some trouble for the tiger cub. After 3 days, Xiao Tian and the 3 other Heaven Saint Masters were fully recovered from their wounds. Upon seeing Qiangan, the 3 Heaven Saint Masters from the Jessan Kingdom naturally gave him their heartfelt gratitude. Imperial Protector, it is a good thing you came at the time you did. Otherwise, my life would have been ended here. Xiao Tian laughed without any lingering fear in his voice. Xiao Tian, in such a situation, even if you could not beat your enemies, I have full faith that you would at least be able to run away. Qiangan laughed. Being an imperial advisor of the Qiangan Kingdom was completely different than being an imperial protector of any regular kingdom. They were carefully selected and were worlds beyond those of the other kingdoms. It was only if they were up against an entity of unbelievable power that they would die easily. Qiangan knew that Xiao Tian was several hundred years old and was a 5th cycle Heaven Saint Master. His talent could only be described as terrifying and was virtually close to breaking through to the Saint Ruler realm. Qiangan didn't believe that Xiao Tian didn't have some sort of life-saving trump card since not a single imperial advisor would die that easily. After speaking with the other men for a while, Qiangan arrived at the crux of the problem. By now, the Jessan Kingdom has been attacked by the Qiangan Kingdom as well. With the 2 sides combined, they have 9 Heaven Saint Masters, which is a major problem to the Jessan Kingdom as a whole. Xiao Tian, defend the eastern stronghold for the next few days in case they try for another invasion. Honored Imperial Protector, are you going to be leaving? Xiao Tian spoke with a slightly hesitant voice. Jianshan nodded, I will personally go to the Qiangan kingdom. Now that they have meddled in our war, we cannot let them off easily. Jianshan's eyes flashed with a bright glow of killing intent. If he was not in this fight, Changbai would be in danger. Chapter 420, Disturbance in the Inn, 1. Upon hearing of Jianshan's plan to go to the Qiangan kingdom by himself, the three Heaven Saint Masters of the Jessan kingdom were amazed. They didn't understand the situation at all, with Jianshan being an imperial protector of the Qinhuang kingdom, just what made him so angry at the Qiangan kingdom. Although the Qiangan kingdom had indeed interfered with the war, this was not something that could warrant Jianshan's current plan. Despite feeling confusion, they didn't dare ask due to Jianshan's status and could only suppress their questions. Honored Imperial Protector, please allow me to go with you. Xiao Tian spoke. Since Jianshan was not yet at the Saint Ruler realm, he was afraid that trouble might come for Jianshan. Jianshan shook his head, no need, I alone will be enough. Xiao Tian, be sure to protect this city well just in case the Blue Wind Kingdom strikes again. Xiao Tian revealed a helpless look on his face at such a response, then the Imperial Protector must take care of himself. Although the Qiangan kingdom has lost several men, they still have plenty more. With that, Jianshan left Benevolent City by himself. Flying 1,000 meters into the air, he began to fly toward the Qiangan kingdom. Wrapped around his chest was the cat-sized white tiger cub. Originally, Jianshan hadn't planned on bringing the tiger cub, but the cub had been unmovable when he left earlier, therefore he had no other choice but to bring the cub along. He had faith in his strength to go against the Heaven Saint Masters and was also confident in protecting the cub at the same time. In a flash, the day transformed into night. Within a second-class city in Qiangan Kingdom, the previously bustling streets finally began to lessen in density and people. By the city gates, a high-ranking officer looked up at the setting sun and spoke to the people beneath him. It's time, close the gates. Immediately, a dozen men began to push the gates shut. One moment. A loud cry could be heard right outside the city gates as a white figure could be seen shooting past. In the next moment, a young youth with a white tiger cub could be seen entering the city before the gates closed. The guards had not bothered to even stop the youth. They spend entire days looking after men and magical beasts of all shapes and sizes. Thus, they had gained a discerning eye, and from what they could see, this youth was extremely strong. He was at the very least a Heaven Saint Master. This youth was Jianshan. It was already night time, and Jianshan had no desire to enter the Qiangan kingdom late at night. Thus, he planned to rest up for the night and continue early in the morning. Carrying the quiet tiger cub, Jianshan walked along the now cold streets while looking for any open inns. Most of them had been filled to the brim with reservations without any opening. At that moment, Jianshan entered a smaller-looking inn. Shopkeeper, is there a room for the night? Yes, yes, yes. How many rooms does sire want? Immediately, a 20-year-old youth came walking out from the back with a smile on his face. Seeing the appearance of the youth, Jianshan looked slightly stunned for a moment as a familiar face floated up into his mind. However, he quickly cleared his mind of any wandering thoughts and said, your best room would suffice. Bring along a plate of roasted beef as well. Jianshan waved his hand and handed a single gold coin to the youth. Taking the gold coin, the youth smiled widely at him. Dear customer, please sit down and I'll have a meal served up straight away. With that, he quickly walked into the back of the inn. Looking at the youth walk into the back of the inn, Jianshan began to think for a moment before sitting down at a nearby table. His mind couldn't help but think back on the appearance of Kendall from his past. Honored customer, your meal has arrived. Not too long later, a single voice snapped Jianshan out of his thoughts as the very same youth brought a large platter of roasted beef onto Jianshan's table. Mrr! The cub let out a happy cry as it leaped onto the table and began to devour the meal. Seeing the white tiger cub's actions, Jianshan couldn't help but force out a smile. I'll have another platter of roasted beef then. No problem, honored customer. The youth smiled enthusiastically before walking back to the kitchen. Jianshan began to look around the inn, taking notice of how small it was. There were only 20 or so tables adorned around the inn, but they were clean and sparkled with bright light. At another table, a middle-aged woman that seemed to be the shopkeeper looked intently at her abacus as she tallied up the day's finances. The sounds of the abacus could be heard clacking continuously while the male youth stood off somewhere else. Aside from the three of them, there seemed to be no one else around. At this moment, several burly-looking men came walking into the inn. With a loud voice, one of them spoke, "Proprietress, it's time. Hurry up and hand over what you owe." At the man's voice, the woman calculating her finances with the abacus looked up at the men with an embarrassed expression. For a while, she spoke several words of hesitation before taking out a stack of silver coins. "Dear gentlemen, this month's business has been quite rough. We can barely manage our living expenses and can't even afford any hired help. This is all we can give for this month." "What is this, 135 silver coins? Do you think we're looking for a meal? We don't care about your business, you owe us 3 gold coins a month." The man cried out in anger as he prepared to cause trouble. Without any other choice, the woman took out another stack of silver coins helplessly. In total there were 300 silver coins. Counting up the coins to make sure there wasn't any shortage in the stack, the men left without any further trouble. As they left, the youth came walking out with a platter of roasted beef. "Mother, did they come to collect their fees again?" "That's right." The middle-aged woman sighed with a helpless and worried expression. "Mother, we can't go on like this. We only earn so much per month. With these costs, we can't afford to even live." The youth spoke indignantly. The woman sighed once more. "There's no other options. We have no one to help us, no matter where we go, it'll be the same." At this, the youth's head dropped down in resignation. "Shopkeeper, why might they be collecting a fee? Could it be all the stores here have to pay a tax?" Jianshan suddenly asked from his table. The youth began to wipe one of the tables with a towel before lifting his head to speak up. "There's obviously a protection fee. Each month they force us to pay 3 gold coins. Even our small store can only earn several gold coins a month, but combined with the 5 gold coin tax to the city lord, there's not much left. We can only make do as is." "Do all the stores have to pay this tax?" Jianshan continued to ask. Shaking his head, the youth said, "The tax from the city lord is a mandatory thing for all stores, but these men are from a mercenary group. They've formed their own group within the city and have a specialized group to go after those stores without any powerful backers to have them cough up protection tax." Jianshan was silent for a moment. He knew that something like this was a common event, especially in a world where the strong ate the weak. Those without power would always be bullied by those with power. This was just another natural law of the world. "Shopkeeper, are there any more rooms for the night?" Suddenly, another voice called out from outside as a white-robed youth came walking in. Seeing the new customer, the youth quickly came up to greet him with a smile. Yes, there's definitely room." "How many rooms might the honored customer need?" The other youths behind him began to look around the place before narrowing his eyes in dissatisfaction. "This inn is quite lacking. Is this place even suitable for the young lord? We came here too late, all the other inns are completely filled up. This place should do for now." Another person spoke. "How about this, shopkeeper, we'll reserve the entire inn. Throw out all those unrelated men." A youth spoke arrogantly. Hearing this, the waiter and the shopkeeper had embarrassed looks on their faces. Clearing her throat, the woman spoke. "Honored customers, our inn has plenty of room and should be enough for your needs. Spare me your words. I told you to do what I ask, or are you afraid our Yangji sect will not pay?" The white-robed youth spoke out haughtily. Upon hearing the name of the Yangji sect, the shopkeeper's face instantly fell. Without any other look, she walked up to the second floor and began to explain the situation to the guests. In the next moment, the second floor burst into a cacophony of anger and curses. Fuck, is this how your inn does business? I've already paid money, just how can you cheat me like this? Do you want your store to close down? I'm from the Bloodsting mercenary group. From the second floor, a roar could be heard. But in the next moment, the voice instantly changed. What? The Yangji sect? Never mind, I didn't say a word. With that, a burly-looking man quickly walked out of the inn. Afterward, a steady stream of men quickly walked out of the inn. Although many of them were indignant, when they heard the name of the Yangji sect, they could only tighten their throats and walk out of the inn obediently with some fear. Quickly, the inn was completely cleaned out, leaving behind only the man and magical beast noisily eating the roasted beef in front of them without a care in the world. Honored customer, I am truly sorry, but you will have to find a new inn for the night. The roasted beef will be free of charge. We sincerely hope that the honored customer will forgive us. The youth returned the gold coin back to Jian Chen with an apologetic look. Chapter 421, Disturbance in the Inn, 2, Honored Customer, I am truly sorry, but you will have to find a new inn for the night. The roasted beef will be free of charge. We sincerely hope that the honored customer will forgive us. The youth returned the gold coin back to Jian Chen with an apologetic look. Jian Chen looked at the youth for a moment without making any movements to take back his gold coin. Then, he turned around to look at the youth from the Yangji sect. Just how much money do you plan to give to this inn? Hearing this, the youths from the Yangji sect all looked at Jian Chen with a cold look. Their eyes began to gleam dangerously to the point where if a timid person were to be the center of their attention, they would have fainted. Kid, who are you? One of the youths spoke out with a dark expression. He had taken Jian Chen's words as an attempted challenge. The other men from the Yangji sect began to glare icily at Jian Chen. They didn't know just where Jian Chen had come from, since the entire Qiangan kingdom had heard about the Yangji sect. Very few men would not know about the sect whose eyes had spread throughout the entire kingdom. Very few could contend with the Yangji sect, so they were worried that he may belong to one of those groups. Jian Chen let out a small smile. You don't have the qualification to ask for this one's name, nor have you answered my question. How much do you plan on giving this in? Jian Chen had a slight arrogant tone to his voice, as if he hadn't bothered to care about the Yangji sect at all. The youth and the shopkeeper had troubled looks on their faces. Each one knew that there would be no way for the Yangji sect to take this lying down. In the case that a fight were to break out, their shop would be the one taking damage. The youth and shopkeeper initially moved to plead with Jian Chen, but after realizing that Jian Chen was no ordinary person from his aura, they stopped where they stood. As a shopkeeper and waiter, they saw many different people every day, making them able to discern a person by glance alone. In their minds, they knew that Jian Chen was no ordinary person, therefore, trying to plead with Jian Chen would have been useless unless they wanted trouble. The men from the Yangji sect were all prideful. Each one of them had a powerful group supporting them, so Jian Chen's words stung their pride. Taking out a purple coin, one of the youths spoke out, I've a purple coin to give to the inn, do you have any problems with that? A single purple coin was worth 100 gold coins. This was practically half a year's worth of pay, meaning a purple coin was a large sum of money for one single purchase. The shopkeeper and the waiter were shocked at the large sum of money. With a mutual look, the both of them were greatly moved. Jian Chen put down the platter he had been eating from. With a single movement, he took out several purple coins from his space ring. Then here's 10 purple coins to rent out the inn. You may leave now. Jian Chen wasn't one to show off, but these men in front of him were not pleasant people. He decided to take such unusual actions against them. Seeing the 10 purple coins on the table, the men from the Yangji sect were infuriated. One of them even bursted out in anger, Kid, do you wish to make trouble for our Yangji sect? You must not like living. Wisen up and get the fuck out of here. Even if you have money, that doesn't mean we won't spare your life. If you don't wish to die, then get out. Offending our Yangji sect is something even the prince can't do. The youths began to cry out in anger as they slowly made their way toward Jian Chen. Jianshan didn't bother to look at them anymore and continued to eat his meal. If you cannot bring out the money, then please leave. I've already reserved the inn, I don't welcome you here. You're taking quite the risk here. One of the youths shouted angrily as he and another person prepared to slam their fists into his head. With a look of disdain, Jian Chen's chopsticks instantly shot toward the two men that came at him with blinding speed. Shwa! Shwa! Two cries of pain could be heard as the two chopsticks skewered through their fists, causing them to be unable to open their fists. The pain was so intense that they couldn't help but gnash their teeth together furiously. Jian Chen's movements shocked the other Yangji sect men who all looked on in fear. You actually dare to attack our Yangji sect? You're tired of living. A youth roared. Jian Chen's eyes flashed dangerously as he waved his hand, causing the two chopsticks to come flying back. In an instant, he stabbed them straight through the throats of the one that spoke, killing him instantly. Jian Chen's action stunned the entire group to the point where one person began to stutter. Why you actually killed a member of our Yangji sect? If you wish to live, then get out of the inn. Otherwise, I'll kill you all here. Jian Chen spoke with a tone so icy that even a bucket of ice water would seem hot in comparison. The group couldn't help but feel extremely vexed at Jian Chen's words, but they had no other choice but to leave the inn dejectedly. Halt, take this body out with you. Jian Chen spoke as he pointed at the corpse on the ground. With the others unwilling to do it, one reluctant person took the body and left the inn with the group. After the Yangji sect left, the entire inn was a deathly calm silence. The inn's shopkeeper and the waiter only looked at Jian Chen timidly, not knowing what he was planning to do next. Jian Chen threw the chopsticks in his hands and spoke, Shopkeeper, since I've reserved the inn, these 10 purple coins are yours. Then without waiting for the shopkeeper to respond, Jian Chen took the satisfied tiger cub up to the second floor. The sky was already quite dark now, and while Jian Chen was only in a second-class city, he could hear the sounds of a carriage slowly roll through the streets. In the next moment, several more magical beast mounts could be heard charging toward the inn from every angle. With just one look, anyone could tell that these men were very rich. At that moment, the youths from before came running toward the carriage. They were from the Yangji sect, and on their backs, the corpse of their dead friend could be seen hanging. Young lord, please help us take revenge. There is a man that dared challenge our Yangji sect's power and undermined it. Furthermore, he has killed our 4th youngest. Young lord, our 4th youngest has been killed. There must be justice for this, otherwise, where would our Yangji sect be able to stand afterward? As the youths approached the carriage, they began to cry out with furious expressions. What has happened? Explain the situation to me. A middle-aged man on a magical beast mount asked. Shortly after that, the youths added oil to the fire by exaggerating the story to the man. They spoke of how Jian Chen had completely pushed around the Yangji sect, causing the other men on the mounts to be furious and their eyes filled with killing intent. Young master, that man is far too brazen. We must definitely teach him a lesson so that he knows the consequences of messing with our Yangji sect. One of the riders spoke. Definitely, young master, we surely have to give a good lesson to whoever spares no face for our Yangji sect. Does he think our Yangji sect is an easy target to bully? To kill a disciple of our Yangji sect, why if news of this were to spread, then our Yangji sect wouldn't have enough face to remain in the Qiangan kingdom. Many guards immediately spoke their disapproval and anger at the situation. Everyone should calm down. If that mysterious youth is truly this strong, then he must be an Earth Saint Master at the very least. In that case, we cannot afford to act rashly. Tomorrow, 3rd uncle will be coming to visit, wait for him to come and we shall see just how strong this youth is. Then we'll see how justice is served. The middle-aged man spoke calmly. This man clearly held a large amount of power, as his words caused everyone else to stay quiet. A voice could be heard from within the carriage, Uncle Zhou, your words seem to ring true. That man seemed to have killed one of our own with chopsticks, meaning his strength is quite vast. If we were to try and capture him now, our losses would not even compare to our gains. Let us wait for tomorrow so that third uncle can look for him instead. Yes, young lord. Every guard spoke in agreement. The second morning, Jianshan immediately left the inn and continued on toward the Qiangan kingdom's imperial palace. Meanwhile, the shopkeeper looked at the purple coins given to her after Jianshan had left. She couldn't even contain her joy at the large sum of wealth in her hands, but before she could even enjoy it for long, a large group of men instantly stormed into the inn. Chapter 422, Havoc in the Imperial Palace. Jianshan had long since left the inn and flew into the air toward the Qiangan Kingdom's Imperial Palace. He was completely oblivious to the trouble he had brought upon the inn's mother and son. 2 hours later, Jianshan finally arrived at the Imperial Palace. Slowly descending 500 meters to the ground, his legs planted themselves firmly on the palace halls. The Qiangan Kingdom had been in a glorious era of prosperity. Despite being far from being called one of the 8 great powers, they were still an extremely strong nation with a majestic status and a rich history that spanned 1,000 years. That was several hundred years difference compared to the Jessan Kingdom. But then calamity had fallen on the Qiangan Kingdom. Just narrowly avoiding annihilation, their powers had weakened and were unable to rise again, becoming nothing more than a silent kingdom. Thus, despite how glorious the imperial palace of the Qiangan Kingdom tried to be, it paled in comparison to the Qinhuang Kingdom. Though, compared to the neighboring kingdoms, this palace would still be quite impressive. Jianshan continued to fly over the rooms of the palace before finally heading to one of the biggest halls, which appeared to be locked. With a wave of his right hand, the fire elements in the world began to gather before transforming into a 20-meter-long sword of fire for Jianshan. Flames flickered away with high temperatures, giving off a bright warm glow as it raised the temperature around it. There's someone in the sky, it must be a heaven Saint Master. Not good, he's planning to attack the Imperial Palace, call out the Imperial advisors. It's an enemy, bring out the Imperial advisors to deal with him quickly. The guards patrolling the Imperial Palace immediately noticed the bizarreness of the situation and began to cry out in alarm to warn the elite soldiers of the palace. With another wave of his right hand, the fire sword in front of him disappeared in a blink of light before shooting into the giant palace hall. Bang! As the bright red flames exploded out from the palace halls, the iron gates began to melt down to the ground and washed over the floors of the palace. Every nearby soldier immediately started to back away in fear of touching the molten iron. Dong! 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 A loud drumming sound could be heard throughout the palace as the strongest of the Qiangan Kingdom began to gather toward the area Jianshan was located. The previously quiet palace immediately turned noisy as countless soldiers came flooding out like water. Their movements were swift, but the moment they saw Jianshan floating in midair, they were shocked. A heaven Saint Master was an entity they could not face. Using the energy of the world, Jianshan began to control the fire element to form a sword once more. Throwing it at the largest palace hall, he was planning on completely destroying the palace. At that moment, a large formidable amount of sword chi came flying out like lightning and struck the flame sword. Dissipating due to the blow, flames began to spread out through the air with sparks covering the palace air like mist. No matter where a person turned, there was only fire. Each area that was touched by a piece of the sword now had a hole a meter deep. A white figure man with his hair tied up came descending down from 500 meters in the air with a furious look. Sire, just who are you, and why are you trying to destroy the Imperial Palace? The elder stared angrily at Jianshan. I am from the Jessan Kingdom with the express purpose of destroying you. Jianshan spoke. The elder had a shocked look on his face as Jianshan's words registered in his mind. What did you say, you're from the Jessan Kingdom? Impossible. We know every single expert within the Jessan Kingdom, and you're not one of them. Just who are you? Spare us your false words. Jianshan sneered at the elder before turning to the innermost part of the Imperial Palace. Qianyun, come out and accept your death. Jianshan snarled with a boom that resonated throughout the palace, scaring everyone that heard it. Qian Yun was a member of the royal family and was even the senior of the king of the Qiangan kingdom. His identity was so majestic that many people didn't even dare to speak his name. Within the depths of the palace, a white-robed scholarly man could be seen sitting on his bed. His left sleeve draped down uselessly without an arm to wrap around, meaning that the person wearing these robes was missing his left arm. And right in front of him were three middle-aged men that stood in a respectful pose, but there was a furious look on their faces. AI. The elder sitting down on the bedside. He really did come. This is the calamity that follows after a heaven-tier battle skill. If it were not for my greedy heart, none of this would have happened. Teacher, is that outsider truly a person from the Qiangan kingdom? Was it he that cut off your left arm? One of the middle-aged men spoke with furious eyes. With 4 kingdoms uniting to fight a single kingdom, he came to our Qiangan kingdom instead of protecting his own kingdom. How preposterous is that? Does he take our Qiangan kingdom to be a kingdom of no one? Teacher, this anger of mine cannot be reprieved. It would only be after I dismember his body that I will finally be at peace with myself. All 3 of the men tried to speak out to the elder with justifications to fight the newcomer. With a gentle sigh, the elder replied, "Don't bring up this issue again. That man's strength is far too strong. Even with 4 heaven saint masters from the Pingyang kingdom, we were unable to injure him in the slightest. Not only that, we were severely injured by him. Our Qiangan kingdom is not as strong as it was before. This is an enemy we should not have offended. You 3 shall stay here while your teacher goes out." Before he finished speaking, the elder transformed into a bright white light and disappeared from the chamber they were in. Impossible. Just how could the teacher and 4 other experts not be able to cause a scratch? Not even a 6th cycle heaven saint master would be able to have such a strength like this. The words of their teacher stunned the 3 men into utter shock and silence. On the outside, the one-armed Qian Yun stood by the other heaven saint master's side and stared at Jian Chen. Jian Chen's eyes stared coldly at Qian Yun. "Qian Yun, for a moment, I didn't think you'd appear. I did tell you before, you shall bear witness to the destruction of the Qiangan kingdom." The 2 elders looked extremely angry at Jian Chen's words. The elder to the side of Qian Yun had even begun to leak killing intent. "Do you take yourself to be a saint ruler? To say such words, be careful not to lose your tongue." Qian Yun stretched out an arm to block the other elder as if to stop his speech. Turning to Jian Chen, he spoke, "Sire, I've told you before, my actions have nothing to do with the Qiangan kingdom. If there's an issue, then take it up with me and not the others. If my Qiangan kingdom enters this conflict, it will spell trouble for the Qiangan kingdom." Sneering, Jian Chen spoke, "Humph, you say it's unrelated? Your eyes must be blind. Yesterday several heaven saint masters of your kingdom united with the Blue Wind kingdom to attack the eastern stronghold of the Qiangan kingdom. Do you mean to say that they are not from your Qiangan kingdom? There is no way something like this would happen." Qian Yun quibbled. But the elder to his side tugged at Qian Yun's garments with a low whisper, "When your left arm was cut off, His Majesty wanted to avenge you. Joining forces with the other kingdoms, he asked several heaven saint masters to suppress the kingdom." "What, you actually did such a thing?" Qian Yun was aghast. Clearly he had not known about the Qiangan kingdom's actions toward the Qiangan kingdom. His face contorted into anger. "Troublesome, how troublesome. Why did you not discuss such a matter with me first?" The elder next to Qian Yun sighed. "Although we had the power to help the Blue Wind kingdom attack the Qiangan kingdom, the end result was that 3 of our heaven saint masters were killed. Furthermore, their bodies weren't brought back and the remaining 2 were heavily injured." Hearing this, Qian Yun looked extremely troubled. This was a tremendous loss for their kingdom. Each heaven saint master was a pillar to the kingdom and directly tied to their power. "Humph, now you have nothing to say. Today I shall destroy the imperial palace of your kingdom." Jian Chen sneered as killing intent appeared in his eyes. With a single thought, the energy in the world began to form fire around his body in heavy concentration. In a flash, it transformed into 3 different blades of fire that began to destroy the imperial palace. "Stop!" The two Heaven Saint Masters cried out as they shot out their hands. 3 different sword chi blasts flew forward to stop the flame swords. With explosive bangs, the fire swords were ripped apart and set the entire palace alight with a bright glow. Sire, this is nothing more than a misunderstanding. Our Qiangan kingdom does not wish to interfere with your war, please stay your hand. Qian Yun spoke. He was well aware of Jian Chen's strength, so to protect the kingdom from falling into disaster, he couldn't help but plead out loud to him. Wishful thinking. Jian Chen taunted. If the enemy had not been afraid of Jian Chen's strength, they would have chased Jian Chen out of the palace a long time ago. Since you stuck your nose into something that doesn't concern you, then I will kill you. Jian Chen whispered. The azure and violet origin energy began to grow in his right hand before solidifying into a meter-long sword that shot toward the two men. Seeing the azure and violet glow, Qian Yun had a fearful look on his face as he cried out, "Be careful, he has a strange energy aiding him, do not let his sword clash with yours." Chapter 423, Cave of the Saint Ruler. After hearing Qian Yun's warning, the other elder nodded his head and formed a meter-long machete. With a wave of his hand, the blade came swinging down toward Jian Chen. At the same time, Qian Yun had taken out his sword to attack him as well. Jian Chen waved his own sword, causing the origin energy to come flying out from the blade like a wave toward the two men. Brandishing his right hand, the origin energy traveled toward the two elders with an azure and violet trail. Heeding Qian Yun's advice, the other Heaven Saint Master made sure he didn't touch the azure and violet origin energy coming at him. Retrieving his weapon, the elder leaped back for a moment before charging at Jian Chen with his machete flying at him in quick succession. Jian Chen's origin energy completely smashed through the projectile sword chi sent by the elder and washed over the area with the remaining energy, ravaging the place with dust. Smoke filled the air and things in the palace were sent flying about due to the energy. All-devouring sword chi. Qian Yun bellowed as his sword began to flash bright with power. In the next moment, a meter-long piece of sword chi came stabbing through the sky before speeding toward Jian Chen. An oppressing amount of pressure could be felt as the sword chi came out, locking Jian Chen into place. This one move from Qian Yun was evidently an earth-tier battle skill. Moving his body to dodge, Jian Chen saw that the all-devouring sword chi had locked onto him. He couldn't shake off the skill, meaning that Jian Chen could only try to destroy it. Jian Chen's eyes flashed once as he began to bend the fire element in the world to his control. 3 swords materialized from the fire and began to bring the temperature of the area to a boiling point. Whoosh! 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 The 3 blades zoomed through the air toward the all-devouring sword chi battle skill from Qian Yun. Bang! The 2 sides met with a loud explosion and blasted the entire area with the impact. Flames burst out everywhere in a spectacular sight, destroying parts of the palace and killing several nearby soldiers who were too close to the blast. In the chaos of the palace, even the elite trained soldiers could easily lose their lives here. Diving for shelter to hide behind, the soldiers tried their best to survive. Wrapping himself with the wind element, Jian Chen began to charge at Qian Yun with his origin energy sword at the ready. Qian Yun looked at Jian Chen for a moment before turning to look at the extremely damaged palace. Without hesitation, he flew away from the palace to lead Jian Chen away. Jian Chen's eyes flashed with the azure and violet glow once more, with each color appearing in both eyes, giving him a bone-chilling glare to whoever could see it. Suddenly, the pieces of stone began to fly up into the air and shoot straight at Qian Yun with frightening speed. Qian Yun had seen Jian Chen's strength for himself when he was at the Piyang Kingdom's stronghold, so he didn't dare belittle Jian Chen. Saint Force began to rush out of his body to serve as a protective shield to protect himself against the stones. The azure and violet stones chased after Qian Yun with a terrifying amount of power. As they impacted against his Saint Force, the shield shook once before repelling the stones in succession. Jian Chen's origin energy transformed into an azure light that began to surround all of the stones he had shot before. In a flash, they flew back toward Qian Yun and stabbed in between his eyes with the origin energy aiding them. Now that he was surrounded by the stones, Qiangan had no other choice but to use his saint weapon to try and block Jian Chen's strike. Ding! With a clear crack, Qianyan's saint weapon received 2 new jagged holes, causing Qianyan to spit out a mouthful of blood. As soon as his first strike landed, Jian Chen chased after him with a second strike, his origin energy transforming into a stunning ray of light that was aimed between Qianyan's eyes with deadly precision. Qianyan's face fell as he realized that he would have to use his saint weapon to defend himself once more to cover his retreat. When the origin energy slammed into Qianyan's saint weapon, another crack became visible. Following another mouthful of blood, Qianyan's protective barrier could no longer be sustained and disappeared instantly. As soon as it dropped, the floating stones nearby perforated into his body and stained his body with blood. Qianyan could only let out a howl of pain before dropping down from the skies. Qianyan! The other elder cried out in shock before chasing after Qianyan's body. Jian Chen sneered as his killing intent spiked once more. Pointing his finger, all of the floating stones turned around and flew at the remaining elder. Shouting out loud, the elder burst with saint force and used it to repel all of the incoming stones coming at him. Jian Chen's left hand unclenched, materializing a sword made from fire. With a flick of his hand, the intensely hot sword shot toward the elder's barrier in an attempt to destroy it. Bang! After the smoke cleared away, the elder could be seen with blood dripping down from his pale face before falling down to the ground along with Qianyan. Jian Chen's body flew down after the two with his origin energy sword shooting for the two. His eyes were icily cold with killing intent apparent in them. It was clear to see that Jian Chen did not plan on letting the two go. Seeing Jian Chen pursue them, the elder with Qianyan had a desperate look on his face. After this exchange, he finally understood how strong Jian Chen was and how futile it was for him to try to defend himself against him. This is the consequence of your Qiangan kingdom meddling in this war. Today your imperial palace will perish and your Qiangan kingdom will fall. Jian Chen spoke. Halt! A panicked voice called out as a large group of people came rushing toward them. Judging from their clothes, they were all high-ranking men, and the middle-aged man leading the charge was wearing an eye-catching dragon robe of purple and gold. When the group saw the 2 heavily injured men, they all turned extremely grave in the face. The man with the dragon robe knelt in front of Qianyan and asked, "Royal Ancestor, are you all right?" Qianyan lay on the ground powerless with a vacant look toward the sky. "This is all my fault. If I had not coveted Chang Wuji's heaven-tier battle skills so much, then today's events never would have happened. Royal Ancestor, don't say such words. This is the fault of our Qiangan kingdom being weaker than before." The man wearing the dragon robe grew sad before turning to meet Jian Chen. "Senior, I know you came here in regards with the Jessan kingdom. I, the king, will proclaim that our Qiangan kingdom will no longer meddle with the Jessan kingdom. So please forgive my ancestor for this slight." There was a cold smirk on Jian Chen's face as he spoke. "Your words are of no use. Today I shall flatten your imperial palace and destroy what the Qiangan kingdom stands for." Jian Chen's words caused everyone to grow serious. By now, no one doubted that Jian Chen's words were serious. After defeating 2 Heaven Saint Masters, an individual like this would be able to do as he said. There was no one left in this group that could go against an entity that could bend the world's energy to his will like a Heaven Saint Master. Every person gathered here belonged to the higher echelons of the Qiangan kingdom and supported the kingdom with their skills. If they were to all die, then the Qiangan kingdom would truly be killed off in name. Growing troubled, the king of the Qiangan kingdom tried thinking of a solution. With a bright gleam of his eyes, he spoke, "Senior, if you spare my Qiangan kingdom, then I will tell you a secret." At this, Qianyan instantly knew what the king was speaking about. Panicking, he spoke, "No. You mustn't tell him that. Royal Ancestor, if our Qiangan kingdom were to disappear, then what is the point of us safeguarding the secret?" Even the king's face had a helpless look to it. Evidently he too did not wish to tell anyone the secret. Jian Chen's eyes flashed curiously. "What secret is that?" "We know of the location of the cave of a saint ruler." "Senior, If you promise to spare our Qiangan kingdom and promise to not make any excuse to attack our kingdom again, then I will tell you of its location." The king spoke with an anxious look. Upon hearing of the fact that there was a cave of a saint ruler, Jian Chen's heart couldn't help but skip a beat. The killing intent began to recede from his body as he began to calm down. With some hesitation, Jian Chen spoke, "If the location of this saint ruler's cave is of some ravaged area, would I not be falling for a trick of yours?" "Absolutely not." The king had a serious look on his face. "The owner of this cave belonged to an imperial protector of our Qiangan kingdom 1,000 years ago. At the end of his lifespan, he died while meditating in the cave. But before he died, he had laid down an array to protect the cave's entrance, meaning that no one has ever been able to enter the cave for 1,000 years. Chapter 424, Kendall? Absolutely not. The king had a serious look on his face. "The owner of this cave belonged to an imperial protector of our Qiangan kingdom 1,000 years ago. At the end of his lifespan, he died while meditating in the cave. But before he died, he had laid down an array to protect the cave's entrance, meaning that no one has ever been able to enter the cave for 1,000 years. Jian Shen was silent for a moment as his eyes shined brightly, but a look of hesitation still remained on his face. He was deeply intrigued by the words of the king, and if his words were true and there was a cave of a saint ruler, there would definitely be a ruler armament and skeleton within the cave. These two distinct things were filled with the energy of a saint ruler who died in a seated meditation. Every saint ruler at the 9th heavenly layer would leave behind a tremendous amount of energy within their skeleton and would also leave behind their saint weapon. Both of these were priceless treasures within the Tianyuan continent, and even the strongest clans wouldn't have such an item. However, there was a huge barrier in the words of the Qiangan kingdom's king in regards to the cave. With no one being able to enter for 1,000 years, Jian Shen couldn't guarantee that it would remain in its pristine state after so long. If there was another expert that had managed to enter and take away the precious goods within it, it would be his loss. Seeing Jian Chen's hesitation, the king instantly knew what he was thinking about and grew anxious. Whether he could protect the Qiangan kingdom or not depended on if Jian Chen was interested enough in this saint ruler's cave. "Senior, the cave of a saint ruler would most definitely contain many precious items that even I am not aware of. I use this secret in exchange for the safety of my kingdom. You are at no disadvantage for this, and this is a secret that only the king of the Qiangan kingdom and the royal ancestor knows. If you kill the both of us, then you will never know the location of the saint ruler's cave." The king spoke anxiously, trying to convince him quickly. Jian Shen continued to debate with himself for an even longer amount of time before at last succumbing to his curiosity. Agreeing with the Qiangan kingdom's king, he spoke, "If what you tell me about the cave is true, I will agree to spare your Qiangan kingdom. Senior, you must promise me that you will not make trouble for my Qiangan kingdom in the future. As long as my Qiangan kingdom is safe, I will tell you the location of this cave." The king was no idiot and spoke again to make sure of the safety of his kingdom. He was worried that after Jian Shen entered the cave, he would later find some other excuse to attack the Qiangan kingdom. Jian Shen naturally understood the king's concerns and nodded without hesitation, "I will agree to your conditions." Hearing this, the king let out a sigh in relief. Although the cave of the saint ruler was top secret, it did not supersede the importance of his kingdom. There was no need to safeguard a secret if it meant his kingdom were to be destroyed. Furthermore, this cave had a strong array formation that prevented anyone from entering. Qian Yun had tried to enter many times before but to no avail. Thus this secret was one they could not use or had no need of. If they couldn't use it or collect the treasures within it, it was a useless thing to protect and negligible in comparison to their kingdom. Afterward, Jian Shen followed the king into his study and was given a map. "Senior, the location of the cave is located here. There will be an array formation protecting the cave from entry. I entrust this map to you and hope that you will abide by our agreement." Jian Shen took the map and looked it over carefully. He realized that instead of the cave being located at the center of the kingdom, it was in fact several 100,000 kilometers southwest in a mountain range. Putting away the map, Jianshan spoke, I hope that you are not lying to me. If I find out this map is false, I will not forgive this mistake. Please do not worry, Senior. This map is definitely authentic. My royal ancestor has visited this cave many times before but was never able to enter. The king swore. Jianshan wasted no words with him and left the area. He benefited greatly from the Qiangan kingdom. He had no idea that he would be able to obtain such a secret that was the cave of a saint ruler. This was a secret that would make every clan on the continent fight over to obtain. After Jianshan had left, the pale-faced Qianyun walked into the room with a badly bruised look. There was blood all over his clothes, completely voiding him from his previously scholarly look. The king of the Qiangan kingdom looked at Qianyun with concern. Royal ancestor, are you fine? Qianyun sat down in a nearby chair and spoke dimly. Ai, this sin of mine has involved the Qiangan kingdom, regrettably. Royal ancestor, please do not say such words. Our Qiangan kingdom did not have enough people to protect it, that's all. The king spoke in consolation. Qianyun sighed. Qianfeng, the cave of Kendall has been revealed, meaning we no longer need to safeguard its secrets. The array formation will do its job. Even a sixth cycle Heaven Saint Master would find it difficult to enter it. We cannot allow this to just be given to the Jessan kingdom. When I am healed, I shall go report this to the clans. Royal ancestor, would this not anger that expert? The king spoke in concern. Hearing this, Qianyun's eyes flashed coldly. This is a secret we cannot tell those clans foolishly, but I will exchange it for that man's life. After Jianshan left the Imperial palace, he began to travel back to the Jessan kingdom. Although he had originally come here with the intent of destroying the palace, instead he had profited from this venture for the future. An hour later, a small city could be seen. This was the second-class city Jianshan stayed in last time. Seeing the second-class city, Jianshan couldn't help but think back to the inn he had stayed in and the shop owner. At that time when he first saw the mother and son, he had felt that the two looked quite similar to someone he had seen before. As Jianshan floated overhead, he began to descend down into the city right in front of a crowded street. The originally noisy street instantly became quiet. A Heaven Saint Master appearing on the streets caused a giant tremor of shock throughout, causing everyone to stare at Jianshan. There was surprise and respect reflected in their eyes. Out of the 700 million population of the Qiangan kingdom, there was only 8 Heaven Saint Masters. Thus, the chances of a Heaven Saint Master coming to this second-class city was extremely rare. It would be lucky if one came every 100 years. So when Jianshan descended down from the skies, everyone couldn't help but be surprised. Jianshan looked around for a moment before wrapping himself up with the wind element and disappearing from the streets in a fast blur of speed. It had only been a little over 2 hours since Jianshan had left the city, so it didn't take long for Jianshan to arrive back at the inn he had stayed at. Walking into the inn, Jianshan was stunned at what he saw. The inn was in disarray with all of the tables and stools broken into splintered pieces with bloodstains everywhere. Sitting at one of the counters, the shop owner of the inn was holding her head between her hands while crying out in grief. On her clothes, several footprints could be seen. Quickly walking forward, Jianshan squatted down to where the shop owner was. Shopkeeper, what has happened? Who did all of this? Tilting her head up, the shop owner's puffy red eyes were brimming with tears. Upon recognizing Jianshan, her face registered him with shock and fury before quickly restraining her emotions. Immediately kowtowing her head to him, she pleaded, "My lord, I beg of you, you must help my son. Please help rescue my son." Jianshan helped the shop owner up and spoke, "Shopkeeper, what happened here?" "My lord, this was the work of the Yangji sect. After being bullied last night, the Yangji sect came back earlier today for revenge. As they were smashing up the place, my son tried to stop them but was taken back with them as a result." The shop owner cried out in grief. Hearing this, Jianshan's face grew grim as he realized the folly of his actions. Because of him, the inn had been involved. "My son, my poor child. You cannot let anything happen to you. You are of my flesh and bone. If you die before your mother, then your mother doesn't wish to live any longer. Kendall, wretched Kendall, where did you go? After leaving for so many years, our child has been taken by the Yangji sect. You conscience-lacking Kendall, if you don't return, then don't even bother thinking about your wife and child. The shop owner wailed with helplessness. Upon hearing the name of Kendall, Jianchen immediately froze up as he looked at the shop owner in alarm. What did you say? Kendall, did you just say Kendall? Chapter 425. Saving a life. The grieving shop owner did not take note of the abnormality in Jian Chen's words and continued to bawl, "My lord, I beg of you, you must save my only son. If anything happens to my child, then I have no desire to live anymore." The shop owner was an ordinary citizen with no strong backing, meaning the Yangji sect had no problems dealing with her. Right now she could only hope that Jian Chen would help her. She knew that he did not fear them, meaning he had some sort of power or background. Jian Chen grabbed onto the shoulders of the shop owner and stared carefully at the shop owner. What did you just say, Kendall? Are you talking about Kendall the mercenary? Could you be his family members? Jian Chen's body began to tremble with emotion. The family of Kendall had always been his biggest regret, and weighed on his mind heavily. At several points, this regret had ate away at Jian Chen's mind. But now that he had finally news on Kendall's family, Jian Chen couldn't help but feel overjoyed. Reacting to Jian Chen's words at last, the shop owner wiped away her tears and spoke to Jian Chen skeptically, "My lord, do you know of my Kendall? He is my husband and father to my sons." Jian Chen sucked in a sharp breath of air before trying to calm himself. Closing his eyes slowly, he couldn't help but think back to Uncle Kendall's appearance before slowly bringing his hands up from the shop owner's shoulders. Suddenly, the energy of the world began to rush into the inn before forming a brilliant glow of light around Jian Chen's hands. In a moment, the entire inn was filled with this energy. Looking at the magical glow that Jian Chen seemed to be doing, the shop owner had never seen such a sight before. She could only stare with wide eyes as Jian Chen's act of magic continued to captivate her. Not too long after, the face of a man could be seen in the light. By using his control of the world energy, Jian Chen was able to use the energy of the world to recreate a picture of Kendall's face. Jian Chen slowly opened his eyes and looked at the shop owner. Just as he was about to speak, the shop owner cried out in shock, "Kendall, that is my Kendall. My lord, have you seen my Kendall?" The shop owner was beside herself with joy. She had not seen Kendall for many years now and was still deeply concerned for him. Upon seeing the shop owner's recognition of Kendall, Jian Chen finally confirmed the mother's identity. Trying to stay calm, he spoke to confirm it one more time, "Auntie, please look carefully, is this truly your husband?" "There's no doubt at all. He is my Kendall." "My lord, have you seen my Kendall? Do you know where he is? Why has he not come home in so many years and callously left his wife and child alone to fight for their own survival?" The shop owner cried out once more with a new wave of tears. Jian Chen's attitude toward the shop owner drastically changed now. Hastily holding the shop owner up, he spoke with concern, "Auntie, please sit down first. Are you wounded? Did they do anything to you?" Jian Chen's tone became warmer, and when he looked at the footprints on her clothes, Jian Chen felt a righteous fury wash over his entire body. Right now, the woman in front of him was the family of Kendall. The family he had bitterly searched for so long. Jian Chen would not stand for any wrongs or abuse that happened to them. "My lord, please, have you seen or know where my Kendall is? Why has he not returned home?" The shop owner dearly missed Kendall and continued to ask about his whereabouts. "That is," Jian Chen's face fell as he began to stutter, not knowing what to say. How could he say that Kendall exchanged his life for Jian Chen's when the Golden Fur Tiger King had chased them through the magical Beast Mountain range? Or even that Kendall's skeleton could no longer even be found? After a split moment of hesitation, Jian Chen immediately changed the topic, "Auntie, we can talk about this later. Let me save your child first." Yes, please save my Sans. He is my only son, he cannot have anything happen to him. My lord, I beg of you, please save him. The mother pleaded once more, deeply hoping that Jian Chen would help her. Jian Chen's face grew serious as he asked, Aunt, where did the Yangji sect take Sans? I'll bring him back. The Yangji sect took him somewhere, but I don't know where. The shop owner cried. Thinking for a moment, Jian Chen responded, then, Auntie, let's find one of the Yangji sect. In such a short amount of time, they shouldn't have left the city. Jian Chen quickly took her outside. Seeing how willing Jian Chen was to help her, the shop owner was overjoyed. When she realized that Jian Chen was just a single person, she couldn't help but feel some doubt. My lord, the Yangji sect is one of the strongest sects in the Qiangan kingdom. They have many people, so we should get some people to help first. Jian Chen smiled, Auntie, you needn't worry. I will definitely bring Sans back, so come with me. Jian Chen pulled at her to follow. One moment then, I need to lock the inn. The Yangji sect was extremely well known in the Qiangan kingdom. Practically everyone within the kingdom knew of them. By now, it hadn't even been 4 hours since the Yangji sect came, so Jian Chen could easily ask the people on the streets for their whereabouts. Quickly taking the shop owner to the temporary residence of the Yangji sect, Jian Chen and the mother could only see a large and luxurious inn. Dear customers, would you like a room for the night or a meal? As they entered, a waiter of the inn immediately greeted them with a curious look as he saw the footprints on the shop owner's clothes. Seeing how sorry she looked, he didn't know whether to drive her out, since she didn't seem like a guest who could even afford a meal here. Ignoring the waiter, Jian Chen spread out his omnipresence to cover the entire inn. In a flash he discovered the location of the people from the Yangji sect and took the shop owner with him. Honored customers, might I ask how to serve you? The waiter spoke as he moved alongside the two with a nod of his head. Jian Chen tossed a gold coin to the waiter, there's nothing, go back to your own tasks. The Yangji sect were all residing within their own special courtyard. Jian Chen walked along a passageway to get to this courtyard before being finally stopped by two middle-aged men at the doors. Sire, this is the territory of the Yangji sect. Without permission, you may not enter. A man said. Yangji sect, I've been looking for you. Jian Chen's eyes flashed brightly as the energy of the world gathered in his hands. With the speed of lightning, he slammed his hand against the two men's chests. The two men were Saint Masters in strength, meaning they were ants in the eyes of a heaven Saint Master like Jian Chen. They simply had no strength and could only be blasted 10 meters back with a trail of blood escaping their mouths. Auntie, let's go in. Jian Chen spoke as he walked in. The shop owner quaked with fear as she followed behind Jian Chen. She looked at Jian Chen in a new light now. She hadn't thought that this youth, who wasn't much different in age to her son, would be strong enough to send two decently strong men flying without a problem. How audacious, who dares cause trouble here? Right as Jian Chen entered the courtyard, a low shout could be heard. 10 uniformed men came charging forward to greet both Jian Chen and the shop owner. Jian Chen's eyes swept across the group with a cold smile. However, the woman behind him was not as calm and collected as he was. She couldn't help but look down at the ground with an extremely timid expression as if she couldn't stand looking at them. Kid, who are you? Why have you come into our Yangji sect's territory? A middle-aged man spoke with a chilly voice. Jian Chen's hands folded against his chest, causing the tiger cub to leap onto his shoulder. With a bright look, the cub began to look around the area. Have your boss come on out. Jian Chen spoke expressionlessly and with a detached voice. The middle-aged man grew furious. Impudence. Youngster, who do you think you are to talk to us this way? Do you not see us at all? Arrest him and await the third master's orders. Yes. The group replied as 20 men brought their saint weapons out, one after another, to charge at Jian Chen. Snorting, Jian Chen looked to a nearby tree. 20 leaves from the tree broke away and shot toward the group with blinding speed. At that moment, the previously weak leaves instantly transformed into sharp pieces of steel, spearing the throats of the 20 men. The 20 men from the Yangji sect hadn't even traveled a few steps before falling to the ground dead. You're tuning in to the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.